This way. Is that Prince for King? What's today's mathematics?
Truth is universal. Truth cannot be invented.
Then it was guaranteed that Marcus Garvey would come the next night. And the hall was packed with people. And everybody went with ammunition.
How they understand themselves as African, right, and American.
Yes.
Like, it's not either or, right?
Everybody who knows anything about Israel knows that in order to effectuate significant change, you not only need a majority, you need a Jewish majority.
America awards her killers, and they get ribbons and stripes and bars.
A U.S. State Department sponsored program and set of musical tours called the Jazz Ambassadors.
Talks about the work of Marcus Garvey and the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as being demonstrative of, and he basically called them total nationalists.
But the reality is that African people are not vicious, violent people.
He's not teaching hate, he's teaching history.
Peace. Welcome to another episode of Wazadome TV. Today I have a very, very special guest. He's been on the show before. The people loved it, and I'm glad to have him back again. President Hotep Dubes, how are you, my brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to be back. I had an amazing time the first time. We got to talk about the ancestors, and anybody who knows me knows that I could talk for days and days and days about the ancestors. And so I appreciate you having me back, man.
No, we appreciate having you. Also appreciate what you do on your channel. I want everybody to make sure they subscribe to Hotep History on YouTube, but also go to the Patreon and support that as well. There's over 260 videos on there, so make sure y'all check that out. And again, as you'll see, the brother, he goes deep dives on our ancestors, and just like you, man, I could have those conversations forever, man, because it's just like I don't know, it's like not only just paying homage but you know, it's sometimes it can feel almost like a spiritual endeavor to
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
And so I wanted to kind of start there, I guess. You know, for the people who may not have seen the first show, y'all definitely go back and watch. But can you talk about, I guess, I guess the origin point, how you created the show, what was your motivation behind creating it, and I think that'll give the people a good insight, as they go over and subscribe and become a part of the family.
For sure, man. For sure. So it came down to pretty much what I call historical injustice or historical disservice. Too many times throughout our lives, especially like, public school kids, inner city kids like ourselves, going up in K through 12, you're told a particular narrative about Black American history. It's not actual history, but it's their narratives. Mm-hmm. And so what I learned was, I told you on the first time we had the conversation, one of the eye-opening instances for me was how myopic and narrow our history was told. And when I go to the source material, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever, the ancestors were actually going through or going to, I read from them and compare it to the textbook or the lessons that I learned. I'm like, you didn't even give me 10% of the story.
Right.
And what I learned was the history that we get in our public schools, K through 12, particularly Black American history, is not told from our ancestors' lenses. And this is something that was very keen for me. And so when you especially when you subscribe, you'll see how cinematic our ancestors are when it comes down to the way that they write their books. And so you'll see that they'll give you the setting, they'll give you the smell, they give you the clothes, they give you the type of clothes. You can really immerse yourself in the narrative, in the story. When it comes down to the way mainstream history is told, you can tell it's being told from an onlooker's perspective and not a firsthand account. And usually those onlookers are not from the ilk of our ancestors. I would even posit to say a lot of those people were the enemies of our ancestors. And so When it comes down to the 19th century, the 1800s, obviously slavery is in full swing. The height of slavery was in 1860, right before it ended. When it comes down to retelling those stories, you are told, or the stories are told, as if the ancestors were slaves who just so happened to be human.
Yes.
The way the ancestors tell the stories is that we are humans who just so happen to be enslaved. And that is a huge, huge distinction because it strips away the humanity. It strips away the autonomy, agency. And I know that may sound ironic when you're talking about the institution of chattel slavery, but when you read slave narratives, you'll see that, hey, they had ambitions, they had dreams, they had fortitude, work ethic, virtues, values, principles, ethics. These things that they created on the plantation are so integral to what we are and who we are today that to be told that, hey, they was just property, they were just livestock, they were just fodder for abuse, that's quite literally the way the slave owners looked at them. We would be doing them an injustice to view them that way. And so when it comes down to the things that I study and the things that I read, you start to be like, yo, I never knew this. I never knew that Lunsford Lane. So let's get into the storytelling. I know that's why y'all here. Let's get into some storytelling. Lunsford Lane is one of my favorite stories. Lunsford Lane was a slave in Raleigh, North Carolina. His father was on a plantation a little bit down the road. His mother was on another plantation. Lunsford Lane was an entrepreneur, an enslaved entrepreneur, and his story is fascinating. And if you're asking, Lunsford Lane wrote his own story. It's not that long, and I'm turning it into pretty much a show, or a little. It's going to be like about an hour and a half long, 2 hours, where I'm going to have voice actors and stuff come through and play different characters, so you guys get to really immerse yourself in it. But Lunsford Lane's story is so incredible. So Lunsford Lane gets bit by the entrepreneurial bug very, very early. His father sets him up with a basket of peaches. He teaches him, you go out into the town, you sell the peaches. It's the first time he's not older than 10 years old. And so that's the first amount of money that he made. He got caught, like he got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. And so what he found was, and this is something that's reminiscent throughout all of the ancestors, is that mental freedom is akin to physical freedom. That is the reason why they didn't want our ancestors to read and write. Because if you had freedom of thought, if you had freedom of mental activity, that was always going to result into your physical freedom as well. The smarter you are, the more of your condition that you're understanding of, and the more you would do to change that situation. And so when it came down to Lunsford, the first time he was able to make or earn money, he never wanted to not earn money, because he looked at money as the source for freedom. He knew that there was a way to purchase your freedom. And so from that very young age, he would save up all of his money. So one of the slave owners' friends would give him $1. He would play marbles with the other little kids, make money there. He would start selling things. And his father, shout out to the dads out there, his father told him, like, yo, we're in North Carolina, big tobacco state, right?
Yeah.
And so we grow tobacco on the plantation. And one of the things that I love about Lunsford Lane is that he was like, I hate to say it, but for lack of a better word, he was a hustler.
Right.
And so all day long he would toil, obviously. And then at night he would sneak off the plantation and go chop wood for 25 cents, per bundle. And he stacked that money up. Then his father tells him, hey, you can sell tobacco. Now, the particular tobacco strain that they were growing on there had to be smoked through a pipe. And so he would, cultivate the tobacco, and then from the reeds on the plantation, fashion these pipes. Now, here's where it gets even more fascinating. He would go sneak off or pay for the ancestors used to be hired out particular times. And so basically he would go to, they call them the mistresses, right? The wives of the slave owner. He went to the mistress on the plantation and said, yo, how much would, you charge for hiring me out for the day? And at the time it was like $25 or something like that, which adjusted for inflation is like a few $1,000s or a few $100s, maybe a few thousand. And so he was like, okay. And so he would sneak out, make his money, stack his bread, wouldn't tell anybody that he had the money, and then give her the money for the day. And so he will go out and sell tobacco. And this is something that people will pay thousands of dollars for when it comes down to marketing and branding. He knew that the most important thing as far as selling the tobacco was location, location, location. How many times we've heard that, right?
We've heard that. Yeah.
And so he posted up in front of the state legislature where all of the movers and shakers, the lawmakers were, and sold to them because he was able to not only have a wealthy clientele, but also charge them a premium. Now, this is something, and we'll get into that as well, I mean, that we got into before when it comes down to the Oyster King, Thomas Downing, where he placed his business on Wall Street. And so it's just the same thing. And so he's selling to all of these legislatures, lawmakers, and stuff like that. And he becomes very well known for his work. Now, this is the reason why I love this story so much. Lunsford Lane, as a slave, was making more money than a free white man. Not only that, he was, he was learning the ins and outs of the trade. He got to a point, fam, to where he was hiring sales agents all throughout the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
He had different, people all across the state selling his tobacco.
Wow.
Quite literally franchising his business.
Wow.
And he was still enslaved at the time.
Wow.
So at this time, he's now, he finds a wife, because that's something we're going to get into tonight as well, as far as love and marriage. This is something that I've been talking about pretty frequently. So we want to get into that. And so he finds a wife. And so how much does she cost? Like, I want to pay for her freedom. And because he kept his money on the low so much, but it was like, you're not rich, but you're not, like, they sense that, something's going on here. So he would go out of his way to like tatter his clothes, dirty them up, so they can kind of like get off the center of the trail. Yeah. And so he was pump faking his money the entire time. If I don't know if you ever watched it, I'm pretty sure you did, the movie Fresh.
Yeah.
When he hid the money in the textbook and stuff like that.
Right.
That's how it was. So he had this can where he stacked all his money under the cabin, the slave quarters and stuff like that. And day by day, he would just give the mistress a little $25, go out, make hundreds of dollars, and come back and stack it up. And so, your wife is going to be this much money. Okay. So he stacks that money up and then he brings it to him. But then, because it's the way legislation is happening right now, is that if and when you free her, you have to leave. Because that was the reason why, when it comes down to the ancestors owning their family, is because if you would have freed them, you would have to move.
Absolutely.
Because they're not allowed to intermingle between free and enslaved. And so they would keep them enslaved. But this, in this particular instance, Lunsford wanted to free her. And so with that, they gave him a crazy runaround. He got to go all the way to Boston, come back down. Like, he had to do a whole bunch of stuff. And in his story, he eventually frees her, but he gets caught up. And so a bunch of anti-abolitionists kidnap him, right? They kidnap him, and they're basically like, they bring him to the woods and stuff like that. And he's like, yo, fam, I didn't do what you think I'm doing. Because they were pretty much accusing him of circulating abolitionist lectures and papers and stuff like that to be against slavery. And he's like, yo, fam, if I was like that, you guys are against freeing slaves or paying for slaves or whatever. And I'm trying to do that. I'm not trying to free her. I'm trying to purchase her. And so it's like, if I was really an abolitionist, I would just want her to be freed because I'm just against the institution of slavery. And so it's so crazy.
Wow, so he just running game on him.
Yes. And so one of the things, Rakeem, this is one of the funniest parts of the story, is because and we'll get into the poor white trash too, because I got to tell you about Henry Clay Bruce. Yeah. So he's in the woods with these, like, just backwood, dumb poor white dudes, right? And they like, come on, Lunsford, we tell the truth, confess. You were trying to abolish slavery. He was like, fam, no, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, if you're going to lynch me, fam. But I didn't do what you're thinking, and I'm doing. And so they all looking around at each other like, I mean, obviously he's telling the truth. Like, so because you still got pride as a man, they're like, all right, well, they brought the tar out, brought the feathers out. So they tar and feather him, right? But you can tell, the reason why I'm laughing, because you can tell how annoyed he was in the story. It's like, man, I'm innocent, gang. Like, I didn't do what y'all accusing me of. Let me go.
Right.
And so they tar and feather him, let him go, and then he got up out of there and took his family to Boston. But he was one of the biggest tobacco sellers as an enslaved man.
Wow.
And so that brings me to my next story, which is Henry Clay Bruce. Henry Clay Bruce is the brother of Blanche K. Bruce, one of the first Black American senators, right? And so Henry Clay, I loved his book because of how I love all of the Ancestors books because of how plain the language is, but they still have those tier 3 SAT words where it's like they'll use words like lugubrious. And it's like, wait, what? Like, you know what I mean? Right. Exactly. But they keep it, you can follow what they're saying. And so one of the things that Henry Clay Bruce put me onto was the classism inside of white America at the time, right? The hierarchy of economics. And so he broke it down to me about how the overseer was really no better than the enslaved ancestors. That they did not sit at the same table as the slave owner. They were not in the same social circles. They were poor. They owned no land. They worked for meager wages, and they were under the same thumb that the ancestors were. And so because of their failed state as being poor white men, they took out their anxiety. They took out their insecurity. They took out their own inferiority complexes out on the enslaved ancestors. And the enslaved ancestors knew that.
Yeah.
And so the enslaved ancestors are the ones.
So it's like they had a class consciousness while even being enslaved because they can see.
Correct.
Yeah. Wow.
Correct. And so the enslaved, I'm talking about chattel slavery. We're talking about knee deep in the institution of chattel slavery. The enslaved ancestors was like, you poor.
Yeah.
Like, you're not better. Like and so they created the term poor white trash. We say it today in the 21st century. We still use that term. That term was created by the ancestors. Wow. They knew the difference because when it came down to just observing, one of the things that a lot of people don't like to talk about because it seems taboo, because again, it's about narrative and not history. It's about being able to frame a particular people a particular way. And so what the ancestors will say in Henry Clay Bruce's book, he says this, the relationship that I have, or a lot of slaves have, not most, but a lot of slaves have with their owners is not that tumultuous, right? It's the overseer that's handing down the lashes and doing all of these different things. It's because of that animosity that they have. It's one of the main reasons why the KKK even was as popular as they were, because poor white men were being looked over because of the ancestors. The ancestors have a 250-year track record of creating the 5-star lifestyle that the enslaver or the slave owners were used to. So the clothes, the food, the homes, the carriage rides, everything that we just compared to rich people today. Think about all of the maids, the butlers, all of the people who work and all of that, the chauffeurs. They are the reason why you have this 5-star living. And so if I have the ability to create a 5-star living for you, wouldn't that mean I have the ability to create a 5-star living for myself? And so when it comes down to cultivating crops, when it comes down to fashion and being able to stitch clothes together, when it comes down to carpentry and building buildings and homes and stuff like that, we're going to go with Jimmy. We're gonna go with Bruce. We're gonna go with the black men and women that we've had for free for a long time, or low pay, no pay is what I like to call it, over Jethro. We ain't never seen you, Till. We ain't never seen you. And so if you look at the state of the South after the Civil War, completely decimated, right? There are going to be some companies who were able to transfer their wealth from the slavery days and bring it into the more modern days. But for the most part, most slave owners were poor. They were ran out of the South. They took what they could and went up north and stuff like that. A lot of the enslaved ancestors took over previous plantations that they were enslaved on and turned them into different small towns, turned them into estates, et cetera, et cetera. And so when it comes down to hiring somebody, you're going to hire the people that you've known to do the good job.
Yes.
The KKK comes around to intimidate not only the enslaved or the formerly enslaved ancestors, but their white employers. And so in the same way that they were burning crosses on the front lawns of our formerly enslaved ancestors, they did it to the white employer as well, to bring fear into both parties to not come together and have mutual benefit, right? And so because of that, you'll see on the ground testimonies of poor white families eating dirt pies, poor white families not knowing how to cultivate land, poor white families not being able to, pretty much be self-sufficient. One of the main principles of the ancestors is to be self-sufficient, is to be self-reliant and being able to use your wits, use your abilities with your hands, use your head and your hands together to create a life for yourself. And that is the reason why Black Americans were able to survive those times all the way into present day. And so that is the reason why when it comes down to the mainstream tellings of history, K through 12 in our schools, you shouldn't be leaving these stories demoralized. You shouldn't be leaving these stories with the narrative being that your ancestors were these just lowly second-class citizens who didn't know no better, who couldn't read, who were, locked out of every type of opportunity in the country, and so therefore they're at the whim of white people. There are going to be certain instances of that. Obviously, that the white people are the majority of the country. White people are the majority of the government. White people are the majority of the rich. Stuff like that. Those things are absolutely a thing, and discrimination will follow that. Racism will follow that. Oppression will follow that. But when you compare it to today, we're not going to sit here and say racism is gone. We're not going to say discrimination has gone. We're not going to say even oppression on certain instances have been gone. So when it comes down to us, are we going to 100 years have our descendants encapsulate our lives with Biden, Trump, Reagan,
right?
No, it's going to be, hey, despite this, we were still able to make these millionaires. Despite this, we were still able to own land, do these different things, amazing things. And that's the reason why, when it comes down to reading the ancestors yourself, it's impossible to be demoralized. I'm telling you, you can read the most gruesome story about slavery, the brutality, the sexual assault, all of these different things. But because of how they viewed themselves, you'll read that and be like, dang, that's crazy. But then the next chapter, they'll talk about how righteous they were, how their work ethic, their determination, their ambition, all of the things that they loved, all of the things that they held dear. And you can see the humanization of the ancestors. And that's the reason why I'm so against it. And I know this is a very long answer.
No, that's perfect, man. This is perfect.
That's the reason why I wanted to start Hotep History, all of these many years ago, because too many of our ancestor stories have been told and framed a particular way to demoralize the listener instead of inspiring, educating, and motivating them. And that's what we do here at Hotep History. We connect our contemporaries with the ancestry through education, through inspiration, and motivation. That's why we're here.
That's amazing and beautiful answer. And I read a book some years ago. I believe it was John Mbiti's book about African spirituality. And one of the things in the book that he talked about was the idea, as long as someone remembers the ancestor will remain with us, right? And almost, and so like these deep dives that you go, there are obviously some episodes that you have where it may be a well-known figure within our history, but just like you showed a few minutes ago, is that you also do these deep dives on stories that a lot of people may not know, may not have heard of. And like we said earlier, not to, and again, I'm not like a religious person, but it's almost like a spiritual endeavor to take these deep dives, learn about our ancestors, learn their stories. It's like sometimes you can see it, you can see them, right? Like you can like does it feel that way to you whenever you
Yes.
Right.
There is a spiritual force that comes along when you tap in and you read as many ancestral narratives. This year alone, I'm probably like 40 books deep. Last year I read over 150 books from the ancestors alone. And so when you continuously read these different narratives, I'm just going to say up front, big Christianity when it comes down to the ancestors. And so that spiritual force, one of the books that we read over the past couple of weeks was Dr. Thomas W. Burton, one of the first doctors in the state of Ohio, created the first Negro Medical Society in the state, brought together all of the other different doctors throughout the state to create this. All throughout his book, he's leaving scriptures, Proverbs this, Matthew this, Mark that, to be able to speak to the reason we have what we have as far as morality. And so I don't know if I said it before, I'm sure I did, but it's worth repeating. The ancestral Black American ethos It's broken down into 5 different things. This is something I made up. It's trademarked, okay?
I got you.
The ancestral Black American ethos is 5 pillars. So it's 1, God first. 2nd, family. 3rd, it is being able to be self-sufficient. 4th, it's enterprising. And 5th is self-interest when it comes down to politics. These are going to be the framework of the ancestors, the Black American ancestors specifically, but I'm sure it travels throughout the diaspora as well. The having God first was extremely important. One of the things that the ancestors did to, combat. I was actually just talking about this before I got on the call. When it comes down to the ancestors holding holding white so-called Christians accountable for their mistreatment of them. Right? You can't claim to be this pious Christian person and you have slaves. And you can't try to use the Bible to justify your evil. And so there's a book called The Walker's Appeal. I forgot his first name, but his last name is Walker. And
David Walker? David Walker?
Yes. Yes. David Walker. So in David Walker's appeal, he holds white Christians accountable for this very reason. You guys cannot call yourselves Christians and then do unchristian things. It's one of the main indictments that the enslaved or formerly enslaved ancestors would use to hold these people accountable. And so keeping God first was very important when it came down to the morality of the ancestors. That even despite these people using Christianity for evil, we don't have to do that. Now, on the other side of that, you have hoodoo. And that's what I wanted to get into.
I love it. Yeah, let's go.
We were we went over so on Hotep History, when you guys subscribe, not if, but when you guys subscribe,
absolutely,
you will see that we stick to 1 book a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. We go through 1 whole book. And usually I try to I endeavor to make sure that I find a book that we can read in its entirety in the week. And so it's usually a book anywhere between like 100 to 200 pages, and so, day 1, we'll go through the first third, day 2, second, third, and so on and so forth. And so when it comes down to, like I said, Thomas W. Burton, he talks about his life. And when it comes down to morality, he was basically saying that your environment shapes who you are. Yeah. When I was around, and this is the reason why I love the ancestors as well, because they're very blunt, like I said. And so he said it, listen, I was an idle drunk. I was a bum, straight up and down, because of the people that I hung around. When I was around a bunch of lazy drunkards, I was a lazy drunkard. Then I found better people, and more upstanding people, and then I became a better upstanding person. And then when he got a job, he was working in a pretty rough workplace where the fellow co-workers had guns and knives on them at all times, and a fight would break out at any moment. And so because of the environment that I'm in, I have to make sure that I'm protecting myself. And so he saw the guys having guns and knives, so he got 2 pistols and a knife, right? And so in order to survive. But this man still ended up becoming a doctor. And one of the things that I love, and we'll get back to the hoodoo in just a second, one of the things that I loved about him is that he didn't know how to read or write until the age of 21. Wow. By the age of 30, Rakeem, he was an MD.
Wow.
He was an MD, became a doctor in 9 years' time without having any formal education. Now, the hoodoo, it was very interesting. We went over this book, and it's literally just different stories about people practicing hoodoo.
What's the name of the book?
Stuff like that. It's Middleton.
Is it like Middleton, a 5-volume set type of thing where they're going over? Yes. I got that too. Yeah.
Man,
it's some wild stories. So
you read the story?
Yeah. I read all of them.
Did you?
Go ahead.
So you read the one where the fluids came out his nose?
No, I didn't read that one. I don't think so.
We going because I know we got to sell this thing on YouTube. Yeah. Man fluids. Yeah. Right. We'll just say that was coming out his nose, fam. And I was like, yo, what? And so one of the things that it kind of reminded me of, if you've ever watched like Harry Potter and stuff like that, it kind of reminded me of that, where they're like using it like spiritual warfare. And so it's like they'll cast a spell. You know, a wife will cast a spell on her husband to make sure that he only has eyes for her.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. Or a husband will, you know, cast a spell on his wife or his wife's sister to stay away from the marriage. And so the different things that they would do, I found interesting. Now I'm a Christian man, but I'm open enough to, you know, ingest anything, like, and be able to, you know, read these things. And so,
and there was also some, not to cut you off, but there was also some overlap within the Christian church and Hoodoo.
Yes.
So
yes,
it wasn't always a separate type of thing, you know.
And so there'll be different practices like, oh, you know, wrap this, you know, sulfur or these leaves or whatever it is inside of a red flannel, hang it above your bed, or you know, bury it under the steps in in front of your home and stuff like that. Take some snake skin, mix that with some rosemary, and you know, all of these different things. And so when you read all of these different stories, man, it's like, even if you don't believe in like the supernatural or whatever it is, these things happen. There's one story where this guy, you know, this lady's, you know, cast a spell on him. He was just dating her at the time. And, you know, she was a very jealous woman or whatever. And so she goes to the hoodoo lady, the practitioner. They cast a spell on him. And he starts like breaking out in different hives and lesions and stuff like that. And so unless you are going to tell me that didn't happen at all, he's just lying, you got to account for those lesions. You got to account for those boils. And so even if you don't believe in the magic, would that happen? Like, how did you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so that story was interesting because he goes to his own hoodoo practitioner and he's like, yo, I need some get back. Like, I need to, you know what I'm saying?
You need a revenge spell.
Yeah. And so the lady was like, yo, listen, or maybe it have been a man. It may have been a man. He was like, yo, listen, I can't cast a spell on the person who put the spell on you, like the actual other hoodoo practitioner, but I can put it on the woman. Fam, he puts it on the woman and out of nowhere drops dead.
Oh shit.
Drops dead. And so it's like, yo, fam, this is a young woman, probably in her 20s or something like that. And so again, if you don't believe in the magic, fine, but please explain to me how he had boils all over his body randomly one day, and in another time this woman just dies, right? A day or two after the spell was casted. And so another story, which is one of my favorites, I'm going to turn it into a video, so make sure you subscribe to the Patreon, where it's this couple, right? This black guy, black woman. The husband goes out one day and he happens upon a snake. And the snake is like, yo, do you want some gold? And so he's like, yeah, of course I want some gold. So the snake produces gold out of his mouth or wherever it is. And so he's like, oh, thanks. He was like, yo, listen, you can have all of the gold you want. All I ask is that you don't tell anybody that you met me, that you know me, and what I can do for you. Can you agree to that? And he was like, yeah, for sure. So he's like, okay. So he goes home, shows his wife the gold, and she's like, yo, babe, where'd you get this gold from? Da, 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 da. He was like, yo, I can't tell you. And you know how wives are, right? And she's like, tell me, who did it? Who gave you the gold? Did you steal it? How'd you get it? And he was like, yo, babe, chill. I can't tell you. Like, that was the one thing he told me that I can't. He was like, so she's like, who's he? Who's this? Who's this? And keep asking him. So he's like, all right. So listen, I was in the woods and I happened upon the snake, and he gave me this gold. I promised him that I wouldn't tell you, but now that I told you. She was like, yo, listen, babe, skip all of that. Listen, if he got gold like that, we can just kidnap him, cut him open, and then take all of the gold. And he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. She was like, no, trust me. Listen to me. This is going to be perfect. Don't worry about it. So he's like, okay. Whole time, Rakeem, the snake is by the window, listening to them. So snake got word, like, snake is hip to it. So the next day, husband go out, got his axe in his hand, walks over to the snake. Now the snake had positioned himself in like the backwoods. You know what I'm saying? Like from you can't even see inside of these woods, right?
Right.
So he walks up to the snake, and the snake is like, yeah, what's going on? The dude is like, yeah, like, I'm coming here for some more gold. So the snake is like, yo, quick question. Are you sure? No. Did you tell anybody about, our arrangement? Dude is like, nah, man, I never told nobody. I ain't tell nobody. I promise I ain't tell nobody.
Yeah.
So they start talking again. He chopping wood or whatever it is. Snake is, they just chilling and stuff. Couple minutes later, the snake is like, "Yo, you sure you ain't tell nobody about our arrangement?" He was like, "Yo, fam, like you don't believe." Like now he getting indignant. He's like, "Yo, you don't believe me? Like what's up?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, all right, my fault, man. Maybe I'm just a little bit, suspicious or whatever, because I'm special."
Yeah.
So again, the husband has an axe in his hand,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Yo, what's that?" Like he tried to to distract him or whatever.
Yeah.
So the husband comes down with the axe. The snake moves out the way, and the husband chops off his own leg. Chops off his own leg. And so now the snake is like, he walk up on us like, "Yo, listen, I told you not to tell nobody."
Yes.
I was sitting by the window while you told your wife all of the things I told you not to tell her.
Yeah.
And now you are going to bleed out. And we are deep in the woods, and there's nobody that's going to hear you scream. You're just going to die poor. I told you. That was a part of the story that I didn't tell. He said, "Yo, if you were to tell anybody, you're going to die poor." And so the snake looks at him and tells him all of this stuff. Like, "Yo, you're going to die a poor man, and nobody is going to come out here to help you. Nobody. You're going to die alone poor."
And he
and
bled out in
snakes
the
slithered away.
forest.
And so listen, way better than Zeus, way better than the Greek mythology. Give me Black American mythology.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my bag. You feel me? And so this is what I mean when it comes down to the importance of connecting the contemporary with the ancestry.
And can I say just one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Because for the listeners, I want them to know that this is not just something that you're making up. Middleton interviewed over 1,600 Black folks all throughout the South and asked them about their hoodoo practices and their relation. And all of these interviews are real interviews. I didn't want people to think we're
it's not a novel. This is not a fictional
novel. Nah,
these are real interviews.
Yeah.
And that was another thing with Middleton, because you have the text just like I do. It's in stenographer style, where it's just like you got to follow the numbers and stuff like that. He just compiled it. He didn't care about format. He did not care about style. He was just like, "Yo, listen, I'm talking to this person. I'm talking to that person." And so and he'll tell you in the stories. It's some overlap with the Irish and stuff like that too, but for the most part, it's just the ancestors. And so, what I'm bringing to the table is a whole different world. I try to tell people all of this, all of the time, it's a completely different world that we're dealing with, and that's why I love it. It's almost fantastical. It's almost like it's a myth, but it's all real. They say things like it's stranger than fiction and all of that. Like, I'm telling you, the books that I have read from the ancestors, the type of stories that they tell. Like, I don't know if I told you about William and Ellen Craft, who so this is William is enslaved, Ellen is enslaved, but Ellen is extremely light-skinned. She can pass for white, right? And so they devise a plan to escape together. And here's the plan, Rakeem. So she is going to dress up, top hat, all of that. She's going to dress up like a slave owner, and her husband is going to be her slave.
Wow.
So she has to cross-dress as a white man. And so they thought about all of the objections that they would get, right? Like, you got a smaller frame, your eyes, all these different things. And so because of that, they was like, okay, we got to put shades on. So she had shades. You can't speak because you sound like a woman. So they wrapped up, back in the day when you had a toothache or when you had a tooth surgery, they would wrap your whole head up. She wrapped the whole head up, just only the face is visible. Glasses, put her arm in a sling, right? And so the glasses are to, shade the eyes and not show how feminine her eyes are. The bandage on her head is so she doesn't have to speak, right? And then the arm sling, I forgot what the arm sling was for. And then, all he has to do is just play the character that he's always been, right? And so they're going to different spots from the South, going up north and having to interface with white people. And so you got to be knee deep in the roles, like method acting. And so what a young slave owner would be a little entitled, a little indignant, sure of himself and stuff like that. And so the husband has to be like, "Yo, listen, my owner or my master doesn't like to speak, I'll relay all of the messages. She has a, he has it. See, look, even slipping up, he has a toothache, stuff like that, and so he has to speak on the behalf of him, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
from that point, so every time they gotta go get a ticket and and give it to the ticket master on the train and all these different things, they have to like literally behave as if she is an actual slave owner. So now she got to be a little indignant, got to be, a little bit, more brazen. And they fooled people from I forgot where they left from, but they made it all the way to Philadelphia.
Damn.
Right. And William Wells Brown, that's another thing that I love about the ancestors, that so many of the different stories intersect with one another. Now, William Wells Brown, obviously the father of the Underground Railroad, one of the fathers of the Underground Railroad, and so he gets up with them, either William Wells Brown or William Still, either one, because I know William Still wrote the book Underground Railroad and all of the different stories there. You guys should definitely check that book out. It's a phenomenal story. And so he meets them in Philadelphia, and it's like, yo, y'all made it from down south all the way up here. You dressed like a man and you pretended to be her, her slave, and y'all made it to freedom. And at any point, all they had to do was take her hat off, to reveal her long hair.
Right.
And throughout all of the different weeks that they were traveling, they never got caught. They almost got caught one time at a train station where people would like somebody was, how in the movies it's like, they have that suspicious,
but they just
look at them
through with their suspicion.
Exactly. It's like, it might be this guy ain't nothing. And so it's stuff like that. And it's where it's like, yo, fam, y'all don't need to make up these dumb stories about, our history or whatever. Dog, just go to the source material. And that's what that's what my next endeavor is when it comes down to this stuff, is turning into film.
Well, let me add. Oh, that's gonna be powerful. Can't wait for that. What is like when you see these stories, right? Two of our, enslaved ancestors with the wit, the genius. What does it say about even them not being able to suppress Black genius even while we were enslaved, right? Like a lot of these stories that you tell highlight that.
Yeah, listen, when it comes down to innate genius or innate ingenuity, nobody does it better than the ancestors. I'll tell you this, and I'll get back, and I promise you it tracks. In 1900, the first National Negro Business League convention happened in Boston, Massachusetts, August 23rd to the 25th, Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
In the convention, it's a bunch of business owners, Black business owners coming together throughout the country. Shout out to Big Booker T. Washington. That's my guy.
Yeah. And I want you to talk about him some too, because but I'm not trying to cut you off, but I do want you to talk about Booker T. Washington some later, because I think he's often a misunderstood figure in our history.
Listen, I'm a huge big book advocate. You can't tell me about accommodationism. He was placating whites. No. Let me tell you, because I read. See, the thing is, y'all don't even know that Booker T. Washington was a poet.
Right.
I've read Booker T. Washington poems, gang. So listen, me and Book is like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got you. Yeah. Now, what was I saying
about the business, the 1900 business convention?
Right. So Andrew Hillier has an address. Now, one of the rules that Booker T. Washington has for the NNBL is that for the conventions, nobody can speak unless you are a successful business owner. Booker T. Washington wasn't about to pontificate all day about ideas and all of that. No, we need to know that you actually have skin in the game, that you have success in that skin in the game, and you can be able to disseminate information to the people based upon real life experience and not just your theories or your philosophies, right? I would rather a middling business owner than somebody who, I'd rather somebody who was working at a business for 1 year than somebody who studied business for 10.
Yeah.
Straight up. So Andrew Hillier, again, this is 1900. You already know the census is every decade, every 10 years. And so he gives the address, one of the welcoming addresses, and he's saying, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Now, I want y'all to keep in mind that this is in the year 1900, over, almost 126 years ago. And this is what he had to say. He says, give the white race 300 years of civilization and freedom in this country, with the aid and assistance of all the civilized nations of the globe. then put by his side the Negro with only 35 years of freedom, turned loose with enmity and hatred of his former master, with all other nations pointing at him with the finger of scorn upon their arrival in this country, with the hindrance and obstruction he has encountered since his emancipation, turned loose in ignorance without a scintilla of education, it will be clearly shown that he has exceeded all other races at least 250%. The ancestors lapped white Americans 30 not even 30 years after slavery. In 25 years time, the ancestors, based upon apples for apples, we gave you have a 300-year start, right? 300-year head start, and we already like here neck and neck with you. And so when it comes down to the Homestead Act, the GI Bill, and all other welfare, let's just call it what it is, all other governmental welfare that white Americans got, and the same government is doing everything to hinder Black American advancement, and we still neck and neck?
Right.
What does that tell you about the ancestors? That they needed government assistance, they gave us government hindrance, and we still here. We still neck and neck.
And it's kind of like how you mentioned after slavery, we had the skills, right? Like, and, you know, we were the ones that were actually putting in the work, passing these different skills that we had down to our children in a lot of instances. But yeah, not to cut you off, but yeah, continue.
Yo, for sure, man. And listen, don't feel bad because I get excited.
Yeah,
and
no.
You know what I mean? And so another part of it, he says, upon a mathematical calculation per capita, you know, all of the, you know, the racist whites, they love the
white
per capita,
right?
Right? So we all know about per capita, right? So upon a mathematical calculation per capita, it will be clearly shown that the colored man has largely excelled his white brother in acquiring property, both real and personal. Okay, at the top of this page, it says, since the war, the Negro has raised $10 million for his own education. I have
a book about that in the South, about how Black folks literally created public school system in the South, and we raised money. And it wasn't just white philanthropy money from the North. We raised a lot of that money ourselves.
And so adjusted for inflation, right? $10 million in 1900 would be $396,452,380. And that's off the muscle. You feel me? And so when it comes down to that, that's the reason why it's impossible, if you read the narratives from the ancestors, for you to walk away with an inferiority complex. It's impossible. And so that's what I'm saying. If everything was equal, if we had the equal, because we have millions of acres of land, right? But they stole it and gave it to European immigrants.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes down to that, if it wasn't for any of that, I promise you, in the same way that Asians are number one over white people today, Black Americans would have been number one in the country. But that was one of the biggest fears. Negro rule. You seen the cartoon where they got the big vampire looking black man and all? They were afraid of Black people getting in positions of power because of every, you know, one of the things that I've learned over the past few years, every accusation is a confession. And so because you're accusing me that if I were to get power, I would do you bad, it's because you're confessing that when you are in power, that's what you would do to me. And so you are afraid of retribution. That's another part. And we'll get into Big Book after this. A lot of people view the ancestors like a bunch of scared people.
Yes, they
do. I want to tell you that the other side was scared out of their mind. People bring up slave patrols all of the time. I'm pretty sure you hear it all the time. It's it's the precursor to the police and stuff like that. Let me tell you that slave patrols quit. They quit because they did not want to deal with the ancestors. You had little Black slave girls burning down homes, burning down entire slave patrol homes because they wasn't going for it. Our ancestors were never cowards.
Poisoning the food.
Oh man, we talked about that. Where the little girls, they you know, they trust them, or the young ladies, they trust them in the house, and the root doctor, right? The Black doctor comes through because back then Black doctors were sought after over white doctors. And so the Black doctor, you know, they come by, he's like, yeah, you need to just drink this tea 3 times a day. You need to just eat this, you need to eat that. Then the root doctor will go to the kitchen, right? He will go to the kitchen and talk to the girl and like, you listen, slip this arsenic in the soup, slip this poison in here. Don't do too much, right? Let it gradually kill him. And now, because, you know, Black women don't play about that, right? she poisoned the whole house. Like the kids getting it, the wife getting it, everybody getting it. And so it got to a point to where they had to pass legislation to say that black people couldn't practice medicine anymore because they wasn't playing around. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes down to our defenses, look up the slavery was exiles and slavery or something like that. It's a secondary source book, but it provides primary sources in the book. And it talks about maroon communities living in trees, living in the swamps, the dismal swamp, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with. And so you get to hear about that. They would run into the slave owners' homes in the middle of the night, steal food, all this other stuff, and bring it back to the swamp. And a lot of the times, one of the things that bugged me out, that there was only a few yards away from the plantation the entire time.
Wow.
Imagine that. They don't want to go into the woods.
What was it? Is it called Slavery's Exiles, the story of the American Maroons?
Yes. It's like a green cover. Yeah. Yes. That book is fire. And so definitely check that out. And so she talks about all of these different stories of the ancestors going, like just really making it happen. And so imagine you living right. So the closest comparison that I could give you in the 21st century context would be, imagine you were born in a prison your entire life. Then you escape prison. You and your family escape prison, and y'all live maybe 300 feet away from the prison your entire life.
Right? That's crazy.
Until it's illegal for you to be in prison.
Golly.
Like, think about that. Think about how like we talk about ingenuity and all this other stuff. That's what I'm talking about, man. Right. So when it comes down to those things, that's the reason why I know if it wasn't for the governmental opposition, the government hindrance, Black Americans would have been. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah. You already know, man. And that's just as powerful to know and understand. You were going to talk about Booker T. Washington. Before we get into Booker T. Washington, I am someone who appreciates both him and Du Bois. So I wanted to see if you saw the PBS documentary on Du Bois that just came out.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's on YouTube. It just came out. It's really good. Just wanted to for those who haven't seen it, make sure y'all check it out. It's really good. But yeah, what can you tell us about Booker T. Washington? You know, he gets a lot of do we have him misunderstood?
Yes, absolutely. In so many more ways than one. First and foremost, Booker T. Washington is the Black American man. For real. And like he you know, Frederick Douglass pretty much passes him the torch, right? He goes back and forth with Delaney and stuff like that. And I have a lot of respect for Delaney too. His book was Emancipation, Education, that long title that he has. I read that book, a lot of gems in that book. Now, obviously I disagree with, you know, going to Liberia, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Booker T. Washington takes up that mantle. And from the get-go, especially if you read as many books of his that I've read, like character building, working with the hands, making the most of life, obviously up from slavery. And so you get to a real intimate knowledge of Booker T. Washington, and you can tell that he just wanted for the advancement of Black America, where you combine your hands in your head or your head in your hands. A lot of people frame him as if he was an anti-intellectual or anti-higher education. And it's like, how can a man be anti-higher education and he has a higher education institution, right? When it comes down to, let's just get into the controversy, right? The Atlanta Exposition 1895 speech, cast down your bucket where you are.
Yeah.
They frame that now as the, what do they call it now? It's like the, I forgot what they call it, but it's like the
compromise.
Yeah, the Atlanta. They call it an Atlanta compromise, and I think that's a pejorative if you ask me. But you know, that's just my own take on it. It wasn't necessarily the Atlanta compromise. It was him speaking to the reality of the situation. And one of the things that it still rings true to this very day is that the elites don't care about your skin color, but they will have you care about it so you can stay at each other's throats. And that was something that he was calling out back in 1895. Now, of course, when you have all of the left-leaning, liberal type of education that you get, obviously any type of understanding, not acceptance, but understanding of the current situation or the current reality of it, and you are understanding it, it's going to be conflated with acceptance. Booker T. Washington didn't accept racism. He didn't accept discrimination. He didn't accept oppression, but he understood it. And the way that he understood it was to solve it by having Black Americans be as self-sufficient as possible and then work with like-minded white people who are willing to, you know, extend that olive branch. I'm not trying to convince a racist white man to like me, but of you poor people, right, who are willing to lock arms with the black man, do it and do it for mutual benefit. He said in the speech, we can be as separate as the five fingers, but come together as a fist for mutual benefit. Right. And that was the way he looked at it. It wasn't that he was trying to accommodate white people. He was trying to make sure that, listen, I understand, right? You may have some apprehension of Negro kids going to your school. You may have apprehension of white kids going into your neighborhoods and stuff like that. I get that. But let me tell you, and one of the things that he said, and what I appreciate about the ancestors in the way that they use the word manly, he said, we need to come together in every manly way possible, meaning stoicism, meaning, listen, we don't have to be buddy to be able to get the job done. We don't have to be best friends. And that's the way that we should be approaching politics. That's the way we should be approaching business. That while it will help that me and you, right, we open up a business together and we can dap up and be cool. But if you are just good at what you do and I'm good at what I do, and we may not be kin on that personal level, but we can get the job done. Let's get the job done. You dig? And so when it comes down to, as a reference to that, Boley, Oklahoma, one of my favorite stories, the black town in Oklahoma. Yes. One of the people in Boley, Oklahoma, one of the town leaders said, the reason why white people treat us differently here in Boley is because we don't need them for anything. Right. So we're not accepting you calling me boy, Sam, or any of that stuff, because I didn't come to you needing a job. I didn't come to you needing goods and materials. You came to me because I'm good. We're good at what we do. And so they said a white man will call you Mr. All Right when he needs you for something. And they understood that. It's like, being self-sufficient is the ultimate freedom because you're not beholden to anybody else.
That's what Elijah Muhammad
not only that,
himself, right?
Yes, exactly. And so not only that, this is a man who has funded, backed, advocated, campaigned for endless amounts of black businesses, endless amounts of black institutions for education, finance, et cetera, et cetera. Almost
and hold on, don't hold that thought. And I also heard that he would fund some militant shit on the low sometimes too.
Yes. So check this out, because I'm gonna give you my honest critique of Du Bois in a second, but I do give credit where it's due. So Booker T. Washington had a faction called the Tuskegee Machine. I think we may have talked about it in the first time that we spoke. The Tuskegee Machine were a bunch of secret agents coming out of Tuskegee that he hired to go about the South and go about the country to be able to spy on, get intel, and all this other stuff from people who may be his detractors, his enemies, or even his allies, right? And so when it came down to the Tuskegee Machine, one thing that I appreciate about Booker T. Washington is that he understood his enemy. He understood, if I telegraph what I'm going to do, my enemy is going to try to stop me. And so in public, I understand. I'm going to understand. But then when it's time to have those conversations behind, it's like, listen, give him that money. And we're going to, they're going to use that money for guns, ammunition, maps, whatever, equipment or whatever. And we're going to fight this on the ground. I'm going to pay the lawyer fees. I'm going to pay this to get these dudes free. I'm going to do all of these things on the under because these people trust me. They think I'm a safe Negro. And that's what we need. We don't need everybody to be H-Rap Brown. We need some guys that's going to be like, listen, I understand where you're coming from. You don't want Negro rule, all of that. I get that. Get as much information as possible. Use that information. That one story that he for as far as the Tuskegee Machine, there was a local school board that was going to shut down a particular black school or shut out black students from the school. And because he had the pull with the local politicians and all these different people of power and stuff like that, he learned about this, tapped in with the people who were in charge of that and be like, we're not doing that. And he overturned the decision. Right? From behind closed doors. He didn't go out and make a speech being like, we're going to keep these schools open. And no, listen, let me work. Let me do my thing. So when it comes down to the Tuskegee Machine, there's Alonzo Herndon. I'm pretty sure you know him, Atlanta Life Insurance Company. Alonzo Herndon was getting slandered by a rival insurance company. And it was a white-owned insurance company who had a black lackey who was putting things out in the street, putting things out in the newspaper, slandering the Atlanta Life Insurance Company, basically saying they're mismanaging funds, they're embezzling, they're doing all these different things. And so he went to Book, and I call him Big Book. He went to Book, and he's like, yo, son, these dudes are slandering my name. I need to know who it is and how it is, da-da-da-da. So Big Book, he sends his agents out like, yo, we need that intel. Who's running these rumors? What newspapers? Right? All of these different things. Word gets back that it's this black dude that's working for this white insurance company. And so Booker T. Washington was like, yo, this is how we're going to do this. Because they try to do it to Tuskegee as well. So this is something that's in his wheelhouse, slander in the newspaper. This is something that we got to deal with even to this day. So here's what we do. Because we know you haven't, he asked him like, yo, Alonzo, have you stole any money? No, of course not, Book. You know me. All right, cool. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the press. We're going to go to the printing press, and we're going to open the books to the public. And so all of the beneficiary benefits, all of the death benefits, all of that stuff, all of the books, that we're going to open it up to the public and prove that we're not stealing any money. He does that. He runs the campaign throughout however many newspapers needed to be circulated through, and he cleared his name. And then the rival white insurance company went out of business because the black customers was like, oh, you lying on a brother. You know what I mean? So that's how it worked. Another thing, and this is going to pivot into the W.E.B. Du Bois thing, and I'm going to give you the reason why I'm like on him, but I do respect some of his works. So William Monroe Trotter, pretty sure you're familiar with him, Boston guy,
and the
right?
Niagara movement.
Right. You already know what I'm getting at. And so William Trotter has a beef with Booker T. Washington. A lot of the up north hoity-toity black elite had it was like 50% rock with him. The other 50% was like, not really feeling him, right? Because he's dealing with too much of the toil. He's dealing with too much working with the hands, the dirty work. We're a bunch of, literary society having higher education holding, that we that's beneath us. We're not going back to the dirt, right? Even though to this very day we need farmers to feed us, right? And so whatever. William Monroe Trotter, he goes. So Big Book, he got a speech. He has a speech at a church in Boston, and that's Trotter's stomping ground. So he in Boston at the Black Church, this Baptist church in Boston. You already know Book. Everybody loves Book, right? And I'm gonna get into the fanfare of Booker T. Washington after the fact as well. And so Monroe runs into the church. He runs into the church with like 9 of his homies, right? And he interrupts the Big Book speech and all of this other stuff. It's and start asking him inflammatory questions like, oh, what about all of the money? Or why do you think that you need to accommodate to white people? Why you need to play doing all of this stuff? And so Book is trying to calm the situation down. And everybody's like, it's in the middle of a church. Like, yo, what's going on? Yeah. So Book is like, yo, the cops run in, arrest him. And so Book had him locked up for 30 days because you're not about to do this with me, right? So William Monroe Trotter after that gets to William. A lot of people don't know that Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois used to work together. Yeah. They worked together on the 1900 Paris
They wrote
Exposition.
a book together too.
Wrote a book together. Well, Booker T. Washington did the forward or the introduction of the book or something like that. And so they had a relationship. Right. And so before 1905, Big Book goes to W.E.B. Du Bois and say, yo, fam, we better together than separate. You on the higher education side, me on the vocational side, right? Let's combine forces and let's make this happen. It's imagine if Biggie and Tupac was like, yo, fam, you got the East Coast, right? Or you got the West Coast, I got the East Coast. Let's bring this joint together and we could take the whole industry by storm. That's how Big Book was talking. W.E.B. Du Bois was down with it. W.E.B. Du Bois goes to William Trotter and be like, nah, dog, you can't rock with him. He's this, he's that. He's the enemy, he's the ops. And so W.E.B. Du Bois wanting to be in that upper class, elite class of people up north, right? Because Book can go back to Alabama. You got to stay. You from Massachusetts. So you got to be out here with me. Right. So who you going to side with? Right. A Southern Negro or a Northern Negro? Me and you have more in common. And so W.E.B. Du Bois chose up. He chose sides, right? Which men do, right? And so they create the Niagara movement. Booker T. Washington, at their first meeting at the Niagara Falls. That's the reason why they had, that's how the name came out. They had the meeting at Niagara Falls. Book has an agent sitting in on it.
Right. They said he had agents everywhere, man. They said he had agents everywhere. Yeah.
So dude is sitting there listening. Ida B. Wells got beef with Walter. What's the Reverend Walter? Somebody.
Not sure.
Reverend Walter. Right. And so they beefing. And so dude jotting all of this information down, all of that, brings it back to Book. Book then uses that intel to sink the Niagara movement. Because they were in the first meeting, obviously, where we gonna get this money from? And so now we all, we all up north Negroes. So let's go hop and, rock with the white philanthropists and all this other stuff. Now, obviously, Book got every white philanthropist on speed dial. You feel me? Every northern white philanthropist that got some money that rock with the Negro, they going to Book first. And so Book has the conversation with the white northern philanthropist. I forgot which one at the time. And he was like, oh, no, that movement's dead on arrival. They not worth the money. And he not only did he tell him not to tell the philanthropist to not give money to the Niagara movement, whatever money you were going to give them,
right? Let me get it. So not only don't give them bread.
Yeah, I need that 10 grand. 10 grand adjusted for inflation is like $500,000.
And I want people to understand that the Niagara movement is the precursor to the NAACP.
Exactly. So Niagara movement gets sunk. Now, one of the things that I will appreciate that about W.E.B. Du Bois is that he understood where he was weak. He understood, all right, I didn't have the right backing. So when it comes down to the NAACP, which I'm not a huge fan of, at least especially this iteration, they did some real good during like Jim Crow fighting cases. What's my Ingram, Rosalie Ingram fought that case. I think the Scottsboro Boys, they fought that case. And so those on the ground instances, I will always give them credit where it's due. But overall, like the latest campaign that they got now is telling with black athletes to
stop.
That's insane. So anyway, so then he gets with a lawyer, a banker, and a few other people to create the NAACP, like Mary something Field, or like all these different people. And so now he has a better foundation to to push his movement. Now, when it comes down to you got the NAACP. There are going to be people who are members of both. Like yo, Book, I rock with you. Yo, William, I rock with you, right? Y'all got to stop beefing. And that's the reason why this is where Hotep History come in. I'm a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
Booker T. Washington dies 1915.
Yes.
Rakeem, this is the reason why I'm not a big fan of him. So Booker T. Washington died 1915. I want to say like December. Something like that. His body wasn't even cold yet. Here come W.E.B. Du Bois in the press talking about, oh, he was this, he was that. And so the press, the black press got on W.E.B. Du Bois's head, fam. And they was just like, yo, dog, you ain't no real leader. You could never be, you would never be half the man Booker T. Washington was. And nobody knows about this because, nobody's reading. I'm the only person reading 120-year-old like newspaper. Right. And so when it comes down to that, I'm like, yo, Black America wasn't playing about it. Now, here is the credit that I will give W.E.B. Du Bois. Hell of a sociologist.
That's what I was going to say. Of a sociologist. The genius is on a whole different level, right?
I can't lie. I can't lie.
He's, to be honest with you, and many see him as like the founding father of sociology, right?
Right. So that is what I will give him. I learned a lot of, Negroes in Philadelphia, the Negro family. What's this? The soul of black folks or something like that. So trust and believe when it comes down to the charts, the graphs, all of that stuff, he hand drew these graphs and all of that. Gotta give him his credit for that. I attribute a lot of what I know about the ancestors' marriage rates, baby rates, income, all of that stuff. I'm going through what he jotted down. So I'll give him that.
Black Reconstruction as well.
Yes, exactly. So I will give him that. It's just that it's more of it's not a personal thing for me. Like personally, I'm not really rocking with you.
Yeah, it's like how he was moving. Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But the things that you've actually produced as far as it pertains to Black America, I won't ever deny it. I won't even say I can't. I
I have friends who are Garveyites, and they don't rock with him to this day, right?
Right.
But I was going to say this too. I wanted to kind of throw this caveat in there is the fact that if Booker T. Washington didn't have any type of militancy in his message, and we know that Marcus Garvey, whenever was inspired by Booker T. Washington, and created the UNI, which was in many cases, I would say, a militant organization, right? And so,
Sure.
like that inspiration, a lot of that inspiration, he said himself was from Booker T. Washington, and I don't think that would be possible. And if he didn't have any type of militancy in his message. Secondly, I wanted you to kind of Secondly, brother, you got a griot in your ancestral family tree somewhere, brother, because like the way you're able, like if we was back like in 1300 West Africa, that would be your job, bro. I'm telling you. But
For sure.
And that's a compliment. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you. I take it as a compliment. A deep one too.
Absolutely, man. But one thing that you mentioned that I already wanted you to touch on. The importance of black newspaper, the black press around at that time. Like I don't think people realize that how many black newspapers there were. I mean, there were anywhere black people were. There were black people. There were black newspapers, black people writing and telling us, what's going on in Memphis or what's going on in D.C., what's going on in Philly. He just talked about the importance and some of that history.
Yeah, I mean, that was their internet. That was quite literally their social media. That was the way that they circulated information. And when I say social media, I literally mean it. Men were finding wives. They would put wanted ads and being like, "Yo, listen, I just read one. It was super spicy too. Like, I gotta read this to y'all. It was a super spicy wanted ad. You can tell he knew who he was and he knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
Oh, don't. I was like, what? He not playing." Oh man, but yeah, it was quite literally the hub of information. So I'm gonna read this one of that, and I'm gonna get more back into the black newspaper. Here it is. I am a wealthy farmer. That's in all caps at the top. That's the first thing.
I'm a wealthy
his
farmer,
hello.
baby.
His hello is I am a wealthy farmer, ladies. Okay, worth enough to make some Indiana girl's life happy.
Wow.
Will correspond with and marry any woman who suits my fancy.
Wow.
Pictures exchange in returns, meaning you gotta be, we're gonna send pictures back. This sounds just like sending a pic, right? All right. Like I said, this is social media. Young widows write also, I mean biz. So save your paper if you don't.
Damn.
So I'm dead serious about this. I'm trying to get married. I'm trying to have a family. So, you could be a widow. That's cool. Your husband died. That's fine. I'm willing to. But understand, I'm not playing about this. I'm getting married immediately. So don't even hit me up if you're not serious. I mean biz.
Man,
okay?
I love these stories, man. And just hear
But
it.
listen, this is where it gets spicy. He says, but listen, this is his words, not mine. But listen, only refined and college bred ladies need right. I am a half-breed Indian and Negro citizen of Indian territory, 22 years old, good character and health, no very bad habits. So write it, desire, I will promptly answer. Very wishing, and he has this crazy Indian name. It's like Zeta Roa M Slow Draggy. But that's the one that, like, yo, listen. And then when it came down to jobs, one of the things that I learned in the newspaper is that, married men were sought after more than single men. Because where is another testament of your commitment to something other than a family? If I'm looking for a dedicated employee, if I'm looking for somebody that's not going to work on Monday, get paid on Friday, and I never see him again, I need to see some type of track record of your commitment. And so married men, they would put it in the wanted ads. We want married men first and foremost. Other parts of the newspapers were you as somebody, let's just say you in Tennessee and I'm in Florida. Okay, worlds apart, basically. The only way that you can get information on what's going on in Florida is if the newspaper exists. And so I can give you like my top 5 newspapers. One, Richmond Planet, off the dribble. Richmond Planet is beautiful. My favorite as far as illustrations is the Indianapolis Freeman, because they had these beautiful drawings. They so you know the crossing of the Delaware with George Washington. They recreated that drawing and put Booker T. Washington as George Washington.
I gotta see. You gotta send me that, bro.
I'm gonna send you that.
I gotta see.
I'm gonna send you that. And so the Indianapolis Freeman is my one of my favorites. The Colored American is another favorite of mine. Shout out to T. Thomas Fortune, obviously the New York Age. That's gonna be one of mine. And there was another one too. Just another one, like
Chicago Defender.
My memory be killing me. Huh? Thank you. The Chicago Defender of Robert S. Abbott, one of the major catalysts for the Great Migration. And so that's just my top 5. There's hundreds of newspapers that I read, and I still go to the archives to this very day and read them. And so you'll just see all these amazing stories.
Where can I find those archives?
Yes, it's called chroniclingamerica.gov. It's a part of the Library of Congress.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow,
and you can refine your searches for, they call it, the African American tab, and you could just type in any keywords you want. And that's another thing. Just get lost in the stories, man. People talk about Sarah Rector, right? The richest black girl and stuff like that.
No, who is that?
There were little. All you gotta do is type in Negro boy oil, and you'll see endless stories of little 9-year-old, 10-year-old boys striking rich because the land that they live on. Like, I'm pretty sure that young man that I just read his wanted ads, he's coming from Oklahoma. It's a lot of oil there, right? That's where Sarah Rector got her money from. And so you had the richest Negro girl in the world, but there was the richest Negro boy in the world as well.
Right.
Him and his brother, they were 10 and 11 years old. They had the land from, the Indian reservations and all of that work, how that works out with the paperwork, right? They get this land. And the thing is, a lot of them were given this land thinking that it was infertile, non-producing land. It was like, just give them 100 acres of this land. And then they strike oil, and all throughout that 100 acres, there's oil all throughout it. So now you got a 10-year-old boy, adjusted for inflation, making like $100,000 a week.
Damn.
At 10 years old. Damn. You dig what I'm saying? And so when it comes down to these stories, you're only going to get that from the black newspapers. And then you'll have funny stuff. You'll have funny stuff like this one lady, and the ladies can attest to this. When you have that one pair of good shoes, that good pair of shoes where it don't hurt your feet and all of that, very reliable shoes. It took you however many weeks or however many months to break them in to get them comfortable. And so this older lady, she got to be in her 40s or 50s working every day. Robber come in the house, steals her shoes.
Oh, snap.
Rakeem, she chases him down the street with her pistol in her hand, bucking at him down the street, booming at him, trying to stop him. She missed. She finally get him, like tackles him down. I think she shot him in the leg or something like that. And she didn't care. Like, she didn't care about getting him arrested or none of the cops.
She just wanted her shoes back.
She just wanted her shoes back. You dig what I'm saying? It was another story. This dude walks up to her. Not her, not the same lady, a different lady. And like, he's trying to get in the house, clearly, right? And so her husband, he waited for her husband to leave, right? He staked out the house, knocks on the door. Hey, ma'am, it's pretty cold out here. Can I just come in and get a little warm? No, I'm fine. Oh, well, do you have any coffee on the pot? She was like, nope, I don't have any hot coffee, none of that stuff. The first excuse was, I think that's my dog. The dog in your window, I think that's my dog. I've been looking for my dog all over the place. I don't know where to find him. And your dog looks like my dog. I think your dog is my dog. And she was like, I can assure you that this is my dog, son. I don't know what you're talking about. So he tries to like bum rush the door, and she immediately backs out the grip. And it's like, yo, listen, do not come a step further. And all he just does is turn around and walks away. Now, another part of the black newspapers that I love are the funnies. We had comic strips. And so Breezy is one of my favorite comic strips. It's about this little boy who's it's like a coming of age story where he's, going to school, has friends, dealing with telling the truth versus lying, stealing versus, it's like a story where, how they have Charlie Brown and what's the one with the tiger? Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes.
Right. It's like that. It's in that vein. But it's a little black boy growing up, having friends and stuff like that. And his name is Breezy. There's another one where, what's my man name? he's perping, like he fakes like he got money, but he really don't. Yeah. And so in the comic strip, he goes to the party, and it's like Harlem 1910s, 1920s. So it's in the thick of the Harlem Renaissance. All of the jazz clubs, all of that stuff. Everybody having a good time. And so he got the best suit on and all of that stuff. He looking sharp. Everybody talking about how good he looks and stuff like that. He walks Shorty home. He finds a young lady at the party, walks her home. She's like, "Oh, I had a great time." All this other stuff. He's like, "Yeah, have a good night." Give her a little kiss goodbye. And then the last panel on the comic is him returning the suit he rented to a Jewish merchant.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean? And it's like, man, son, it's like these newspapers, like, and then you just have local news stories, just like how we have today. Yeah. And I'd be nosy. That's one of the things I be feeling so nosy when I'm in, because so there was one. It's a little harsh, it's a little crazy, but I still tell it. So it's this young lady, and she was in an abusive relationship, and so she goes to her sister and stuff like that, and her sister puts her up. Her sister has a rental property, and so you can stay at one of my rental properties, get back on your feet, leave your dude. It's all good. You my sister. So it's Thanksgiving, right? It's Thanksgiving. Now the estranged husband starts peeking back around and stuff like that. Right. So, and you know how it is when it comes down to couples and stuff like that. They break up, get back together, da. And so she's partying with her husband until like 3-4 in the morning in this rental property. And people in the neighborhood is like, "Yo, do you know your sister got the crib rocking down the street?" So this dude, I think his name was James or something like that, drives the big sister over to her rental property and see what's going on. And by the time she get there, the party has died down, but it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. She see her little sister laid up with the abusive husband, and she go in there and kill everybody. Damn. She go in there and it's like, yo, Thanksgiving night, like, yo, you feel me? Wow. Then you have I think what was another one? Sure. I show you. I told you about Sherman Dudley and Sylvester Russell. That was another story that was fire. But I'm telling you, these newspapers have stories out the wazoo. Yeah, I just pulled it up. And so I saved it. I saved it on my bookmark. Yeah, just go in there and tinker with keywords, yo. Wealthy Negro. Try to keep Negro in there or whatever it is. If you're gonna search for African American in the tab, just anything struck oil, bank robbery, new baby, and that's another thing. What you will always, and I mean 100% of the time. Let's just say you go in there to find, mentions of, I don't know, a baby being born. And you're looking at you click a newspaper. I guarantee you there's going to be an article in that same paper. You're not even looking for this, but the story that you find, like that you happen upon, is going to be even more interesting than what you're searching for. Right. So go crazy. Yeah. I'm talking about any keywords you can possibly think of: jewelry, shoes, whatever words you can think of. Type it in, and I promise you are going to find an extremely interesting article, and it's going to be over 100 years old, and you're going to be like, "Whoa, they was living like that." Man, yeah, they was living like that. You know what I'm saying? Earlier in the show, you mentioned love and marriage. Yes. So, I don't know how in tune you are when it comes down to the so-called gender wars on the timeline. It's very egregious, if you ask me, because it's one of the things that the ancestors got right immediately. And the reason why they got right immediately is because the ancestors understood more than us, with all the information that we have, that there is a psyop against us, and it's coming from our enemy. Psychological operation, for those who don't know what that abbreviation is, right? And one of the major things that you have to look at, you know how people say, don't listen to a man's words, look at his actions? Right. Our enemies wanted us to be individualistic and splintered. That's why they sold, husband from the kids, a wife from the husband, and, all these different things, separated families. So the ancestors, seeing that they were intentionally separated, made a concerted effort to bring the family together. That's the reason why there is no other culture in the world who has family reunions. Yeah, we are the only culture in the world, on the entire planet, where we have family reunions. That's intrinsically, explicitly, strictly a Black American invention. Family reunions were because My mother was sold in Alabama. My father was sold in Georgia. My sister was sold. And so I'm sending word out. That was one of the major things when it came down to the newspaper. Yo, looking for Sally, looking for James, looking for this. Yo, if you're reading this, I am in North Carolina. If you're reading this, I'm in Florida. If you're reading this, let's meet in Mississippi or whatever it is. And that's where family reunions came from, right? And so when it comes down to love and marriage, finding your mate you will never see a 19th century black man be a bachelor until his 40s. You just won't see it. Because we understood that was pretty much a antithetical to what it would mean to be and do what you need to do out here. You have to have purpose and meaning. And what is more purposeful and what is more meaningful than your own family? The main motivations. Are you a father?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when you saw your baby come out, a whole different circuit went through your brain. Like, I gotta make it.
Absolutely.
Gotta make sure that this child is taken care of, and I have to do all of these things. And you looked at their mother and was like, I have to make sure she's protected. I have to make sure she's good. That is my charge as a man. And so that is the reason why the ancestors, they wrote books about this stuff. And they said, now this is in the 19th century, so you got to keep it in historical context, that the proper age or the most appropriate age for a young woman is anywhere between 19 and 21, and for a young man, 23 to 25. The ancestors were real big on the fathers and the husbands being slightly older than their wives because of leadership, wisdom, and all these other things. And they hated age gaps. I know that's another stereotype of the past that, it was this 35-year-old dating this 13-year-old and stuff like that. That was frowned upon by the ancestors. Did it happen? Sure. And even in the book that I'm referring to, they said, if you are in a situation where there are no men of your age, yes, instead of you not having a family at all, get with the 30-year-old, right? But understand that that's not the prescription all the way, right? And so 19 to 21 for women, 23 to 25 for young men. And marriage, one thing that I found out, Rakeem, you will never hear about dating. That's a 20th century and beyond phenomena. Dating, courtship, always, right? Yes. Courting a woman, courting and stuff like that for sure. But it wasn't like dates. It was you actually getting to know the person, because the entire point of me talking to you is to marry you. It's not just to have indiscriminate sex with you and then move on. No, I want to become your husband. Everything, how people today be like date intentionally for marriage. That's something that didn't even have to go, that went without saying. Because why am I talking to this young lady if I don't if I'm not thinking about potentially marrying her? I just want to make sure that her, her actual, individual qualities or stuff like that is compatible for me. Not that she's not marriage worthy or she's not marriage minded. Everybody around here marriage minded. Nobody want to be a bachelor until they're 50.
Right.
It's a new phenomena now. Right? Nobody wants to be a bachelorette until they're 45 years old. No, absolutely not. And so when it comes down to family, love, and marriage, what you will see when it comes down to the industrious, commercial, professional, intellectual black men of the time, you will see time and time again, I would not be who I am without my wife. That woman is the reason why. And so I'll give you a couple quotes from the ancestors on that, because it's going to be featured in my book. Can't wait for y'all to read it. It's called The Ancestral Black American Man. You got the exclusive. I didn't even say it on my show yet.
That's the exclusive here at Wazadome TV.
Yes, this is an exclusive. The title of my book is called The Ancestral Black American Man. And like I said, my entire endeavor is to reconnect the ancestors with my contemporaries. And so,
wow, I can't wait, brother. I can't wait to read that. Just to let you know, but
absolutely. And so here's a couple quotes from the ancestors when it came down to that. This is Dr. Thomas W. Burton. 18 well, this book was published in like 1910, but he talks about 1890s, right? He says, on August 3rd, 1893, I was married to Miss Hattie B. Taylor of Cynthiana, Kentucky, one of the best women that ever lived. 9 times out of 10, if I follow her advice, I will come out all right. And when I don't, I always come out all wrong. When it comes down to the ancestral Black American man, nobody And I mean, nobody was higher on the totem pole than the ancestral Black American woman. The only entity that was more important than her was God himself. And so here's another quote. Because, you know, there's this trope about Black men that we just hate Black women and all this other stuff that I hate it. And so here we go. Where is it? Let me look at. Here we go. Here's what the Alexander Crummell had to say about the Black woman. He says, "For humble and benighted as she is, the Black woman of the South is one of the queens of womanhood. If there is any other woman on this earth who in native aboriginal qualities is her superior, I know not where she is to be found. For I do say that in tenderness of feeling, in genuine native modesty, in large disinterestedness, in sweetness of disposition, in deep humility, in unselfish devotedness, and in warm motherly assiduities, the Negro woman is unsurpassed by any other woman on earth."
Wow.
This is what the Black man spoke about the Black woman since antiquity.
Right.
I don't believe in the gender war. I think it's a psyop, just like I believe the diaspora war is a psyop. You can be, and I am, a proud Black American man, but I don't have to be anti-Caribbean, anti-African to be able to espouse my pro-Black Americanness. All throughout this this conversation, hour and a half so far, I have been proud of my Black American heritage, and not one time that I have to disparage white people, Caribbean people, Africans, or women. Period. Because when you start to get into Carter G. Woodson, he'll reverence Africa. When it comes down to the ancestors, they don't have no beef with Africa, but they are intrinsically American. And they are proud of that. And so that's what I'm bringing. When it comes down to delineation in the name of reparations, I'm with it. But I'm not about to disrespect Black Caribbeans or Black Africans if they didn't disrespect me. Now I'm going to defend my people. Now, if it's a bunch of, Caribbean people disrespecting Black Americans, I'm going to hold it down, right? But just off the fact that you're not from America, I'm not doing that, right? And I do believe in that Black Americans are deserving of reparations, so I'm for that. I'm just not one of those people who have to be anti-immigrant or anti-African or anti-Caribbean to be pro-Black American. Right. And so that's my thing. My very best friend, the past two, rest in peace, Ryan Rowe, that's my guy. That's my brother. He still is my brother. His little sister just had a baby a year ago. That's my nephew, Jamaican on both sides, right? My man Mike, I'm the godfather of his firstborn son. That's Jamaican on both sides. I will never forsake them for just to say that I'm pro-Black American. Never. Right. And so that's my thing. But going back to my point, love and marriage is extremely important in Black America. It's extremely important. It combines minds. It combines union. Two people into a union. When it comes down to wealth building, right? Being able to build wealth with one another. When it comes down to legacy. When it comes down to being able to make sure that the community is taken care of. The institution of marriage is extremely important.
Yes.
And as somebody who's going to, next year will be 10 years of marriage, right? I'm extremely proud to not only say that, but also to encourage other young Black men to do the same. Because there is a woman out there for you that's your helpmate, that is going to, help you build this family, build the wealth, be that support system that you need, and vice versa. And that's what I encourage. My friends call me Mr. Marriage when it comes down to that.
But when I see that stuff on the timeline, it's so discouraging sometimes, man. It's like I gotta log off for a minute because that's not who we are. You know what I'm saying? And and so I'm definitely glad that you addressed that. There's one video that you have that I haven't gotten a chance to watch it, but I wanted you to kind of just go over a little bit who she was because I don't know, her picture just caught me, and I was curious to know her story. But Fanny Jackson Coppin.
Yes. Fanny Jackson Coppin is one of my favorite. Fanny Jackson Coppin, one of those educators that really gave their all when it came down to teaching kids. And she practiced group economics in a way that I have yet to see be done or duplicated.
Is this anything to do with Coppin State by chance?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's her. And so when it comes down to the precursor to all of that, she crowdfunded nationwide through the newspaper. So she had this, she was based in Philly, right? She went to the Institute for Colored Youth out there. And she saw all of the bright potential of Black students, Black ingenuity, Black intelligence. And so she was like, you know what? The best way to, help the youth is to showcase the youth, being able to show their literary skills, the creative skills, and all these different things. So she created this program where you can just walk into it. It's almost like a museum where you can walk into it and see all of the works of Negro youth throughout the country. Right. So she sent the word out through the newspaper, and Rakeem, 24 states of people responded and gave what they could.
Wow.
And she was able to crowdfund nationwide through the newspaper. And this is the reason why when I say the newspaper was their internet, was their, information highway, was their social media, et cetera, because that's how they used it. You legitimately were able to send word to people from a completely different region of the country based upon this newspaper. And so the way that she talked about education, fam, was incredible. She talked about how important elementary education was to the shaping of the mind. She had these babies doing algebra. He had 6-year-olds and 5-year-olds doing algebra, fam, learning geography. She had these programs where a 7-year-old was building wealth.
Right.
Learned how to write, back in the day it was checks and money orders. Learned how to write checks and money orders at 7 years old. Had a summer job at 12. So a 7-year-old girl, her summer job was to help this blind lady or walk this blind lady to church every Sunday. And the blind lady would give her a quarter. And so all throughout the summer, Fanny would tell him, stack your money or just be a steward with your money. Now, I can tell you, as a child, I grew up in the church. 8 years old, I started making my first money playing drums in the church.
Right.
Hakeem, the money didn't last more than 10 minutes after church. I'm at the store, okay?
Right.
Buying the candy. Because, this is back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Where $1, how far you could get with $1 in a bodega in the 90s? You get the 25-cent bag of chips.
Yep.
You can get another 25% worth of candy, which is a lot of candy.
Get you a
can
soda.
Get the soda.
Yeah.
You get your little cake.
Yeah.
And you still may have a little bit of change.
Yeah.
You feel me? So if I had a $5 bill, I might as well been Donald Trump. Like I might as well been Jay-Z or something in that store, family. You get something. Everybody get something. Now, this 7-year-old in 1890 or 1910 is stacking up all of her chips to crowdfund charities with the rest of the class. The class stacked up like $1,000, fam, which adjusted for inflation is like 10 grand for their own charity. And these charities are Black-owned charities that are inside of the community. This 12-year-old, she worked after school all throughout the summer and stuff like that, stacked up a whole bunch of bread. She started off cleaning, and then they were looking for a cook. And so the cook position paid like twice as much. So she was like, yeah, I can cook. I'll cook. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is all Fanny's work. Fanny was making sure that, if we can properly teach, and she was getting into the nitty gritty of placing the desk and grouping your students in the threes and making sure the smartest kids graded the slower paced kids and stuff like that. And so there should always be interaction between you and the student. There should never be a time where you can just sitting on your desk and watching them work. At all times, you need to be pacing throughout the classroom, looking over shoulders, making sure that you're assisting people. Don't be the one to make them feel bad. Have them correct their fellow student, because being corrected by your friend or being corrected by your classmate is better than the authority figure in the room. And so because you have that camaraderie with that classmate, when they tell you, oh no, the answer is not 7, the answer is actually 9, and this is how you get to 9 instead of, the mistake that you made, you're going to remember that, as opposed to, no, 7 is wrong, you need to do it again and figure it out. No, it was always done. That's one of the things I love about the ancestral teachers, is that the affinity, the love that they had for the kids. It was like their kids.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I loved about her is that the children really had an affinity for her. And it actually goes hand in hand with Booker T. Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Booker T. Washington is a little bit more stoic, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a little bit more, just more stern about it. So when he did a tour of all of the schools down south and stuff like that, he was like, okay, leaky roof, you got to fix that. Window, you got to patch that up. These things you got to fix. But good job, just gotta, do better, right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to Fanny, more compassionate. She's a woman, so more feminine, right? More feminine approach. Be compassionate, being able to understand and love them through it. They may have holes in their clothes, so let me sew up their clothes. Let me do their hair. Let me, if I got some extra food or whatever, let me bring that. Because it's important for the babies to know that we care about them.
Absolutely.
And the more they know that we care about them, the more they'll do for us. The more that they'll try to impress me because I'm already impressing upon them that I appreciate them. And so when Miss Fanny, tells me that we have a presentation coming and we need to have the best artists bring the best art, or the best, engineers, tinker with something and show us your crude machinery and stuff like that. The kids are going, like, falling over themselves trying to impress Miss Fanny because of the affinity that she brought to the kids in the classroom. And so Miss Fanny Jackson Coppin is one of my favorite educators in history. She's amazing, and she should be lauded as the amazing teacher that she was. And she had 6-year-olds learning how to, be financially literate. She has 6-year-olds doing algebra. She has 6-year-olds writing in cursive. Man, it's incredible.
And
it's
shout
incredible.
out to Coppin State too. You know what
Coppin
I'm saying?
State. Shout out to y'all, man.
What is you? A lot of the stories that you tell show our views, even from the time of our enslavement to Reconstruction to Jim Crow. But talk about what our views of education was like. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people may downplay how much education was important to us. You know what I mean?
It was quite literally freedom. I mentioned that earlier. It was literally the closest thing to freedom. So in the book that I'm writing, there's a young man, I forget his name right now because my memory, as much as I remember, people like, I forget more history than you were taught. That's me.
Yeah.
And so as much as I know, I'll be forgetting a whole bunch. And so there's this young boy, and it's a little bit of sneak peek into the book. There's a young boy, and I'll give you 2 instances. There's a young boy who's he has some chalk. And this guy had wrote an outline of his name, and he was like, yo, just trace this and you'll learn how to write your name in cursive. And so he did that on paper, but he wanted to keep it going. So he got the chalk, and he walked from maybe, let's just say, a mile down, mile south, and then a mile back up north on this road. And all throughout on the road, he was writing his name on the wall with the chalk. So by the time he got all the way down and all the way up, he mastered writing his name in just that little bit of a time. Probably 5 years old.
Wow.
A small kid.
Wow.
Another story of this little black boy. And obviously I told you reading and writing was illegal for black boys or black children.
Yes.
And so he had white friends, because a lot of the kids who grew up on the plantation played with the slave owners' children. That's how it just was. Or they were their servants, So he's playing with them, and he's like, yo, come on, man, teach me how to read, teach me how to write. And the boys, I don't even think there was any hatred, but they was just like, yo, son, it's against the rules. We can't.
Yeah.
Like, that's how they looked at it.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right, whatever. And so, the little white boys, they're having spelling contests. And this is, I want y'all to hear this.
Wow.
They had a spelling contest.
I know where you're going. This is crazy.
Yo, they had a spelling contest. And so he's listening to them spell words. Let's say, spell cat, C-A-T. Spell ball, B-A-L-L, right? Now, as a black boy who does not know what letters look like, and you have no idea how to write them, but you know what they sound like, you commit those sounds to memory. And then once you can, you attribute or whatever you can to be able to write it down. But I want y'all to ask yourselves, imagine if you knew what the letter A sounded like. You knew where it was in the word, but you did not know what the letter A looked like at all. How long would it take for you to not only remember it, but commit it to memory to be able to say it out loud?
Right.
This is the type of education. This is how
That's genius
important
right there, man. I'm sorry.
educate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yo, listen, man. Like, it's never a dull moment with the ancestors. I'm telling you.
Right.
Now, this is the reason why the mainstream histories of our ancestors is so egregious. This is why they give you this myopic, narrow view of the ancestors, and they don't tell you about these stories, right? And so that's why I get so hyped. And so, when it came down to the second part of that, he said that he saw white people reading, and he saw them reading. So I'm you got a book open and you're reading the words out loud. He thought that the people were speaking to the book. That's what it looks like. It looks like you're just talking to a book. And so he called them black marks. Like, these black marks are making the book talk. And the way that he conceptualized reading was so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
That making the book talk or making the pages talk.
Yeah.
You dig what I'm saying? And so this is obviously, he's like 6 years old at the time. But that is a deep level of wisdom for a 6-year-old to conceptualize reading that way.
Yes.
And then to take it further, a lot of people, we talk about culture and when it comes down to education, our literacy rates are not as where they need to be. They're bad. They're abysmal. Babies can't read. Now, when it comes down to the ancestors, you got to understand how important this is, because people always say, well, the parents don't know better and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, the slaves, the former slaves who could not read, because imagine you 45, 55 years old, 60 years old, you just, you were born 1800, you were freed at 65 years old, right, in 1865, and you got kids and grandkids. And so you don't know how to read or write, but you know how important it is. And so there were so many different stories of, autobiographies that I've read where it was like, yo, I was 6, my father was, 30, my mom was, 25, and we all in the same classroom learning how to read.
Wow.
Night classes and all these different things. Education was everything. Education meant the difference between you being a slave and you being free in their mind. And that is the reason why the enemies of the ancestors didn't want them to learn how to read or write.
Yeah.
Because the minute you learn how to read or write is when we can no longer trap your mind.
What is the saying? Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave.
Yes, exactly. So think about it like this. When it comes down to, I'm pretty sure y'all have seen the horse experiment where they tie a horse up to like something fragile, like a wicker chair or something like that. But because the horse has been trained to not move, he doesn't even know his own power. And so that's what they were doing to the ancestors, is that if we keep the books away from you, if we keep the pencils and pens away from you, you won't ever know how strong and how free you actually are. And so when it comes down to reading books, that was one of my favorite levels of defiance. The two parts of defiance that my favorite are getting an education when it was illegal and owning guns when it was illegal. Yeah. Because everybody knows, shout out to Maj Toure, he coined the term all gun control is racist, because the first gun control bill, right, inside of the black codes was that, black people couldn't own guns. Because they didn't want our ancestors to defend themselves.
And so the gun control that came after the Panthers as well.
Exactly. And so, Ronald Reagan was the governor at the time, right? So that's another little tidbit. And so when it comes down to, owning guns and reading books, the ancestors did this defiantly. Imagine, the slave, there's one story that I love, this little slave girl. She goes into the little, the slave owner's daughter's room, and she got a nice little bookshelf with all of the books and stuff like that. And instead of, because she wanted to keep it as low on the lowest possible, she wouldn't steal.
You could get killed for that.
Yeah, she didn't steal the book itself. She would just go and steal a page every night. She would steal a page out of the book every night. And the same way that how it's a good book, you want to get to the next page, you want to get to the next, you excited, and so. And I appreciate the way the story ended, is that, she did get caught eventually, right? Because like half the book is ripped out and stuff like that. But the little girl took she pretty much was like, oh, Dad, I was mad at you, and so I started ripping pages out of the book. Like she didn't let the little girl get in trouble. And so that that was cool. But that's the lengths that the ancestors would go to get an education and to educate themselves. And that's the reason why they kept it away from it. So the harder you kept that away from them, the harder they went to acquire it.
Yeah.
And then you also have, I ain't gonna front, you'll have some white allies, so to speak, that help you teach you how to read, teach you how to write and stuff like that. So shout out to them for that. But
and
when
we also had that the one of us that would know how to read, we would set up our little circles in the woods and teach those who we could how to read and write as well.
Yeah, and so like that's the reason why, like, when people use terms like "got it out the mud," "self-made," and all of them, like, nobody did it better than the ancestors. We talking about literally from the dirt. Like, could you imagine? Like, you are free to go, walk off the plantation and live your life. You can't read, you can't write, but somehow y'all all come together and build an entire town. Post office, church, businesses, homes, everything that a functioning town, has.
Yeah.
So, we talk about this stuff all of the time. It's like, the type of get it out the mud energy that we be talking about, nobody did it better than the ancestors. They literally created something out of nothing, thin air.
Right.
They practice alchemy, if you ask me. They manipulated the natural elements of this earth. Air, fire, earth, right? And water, and the different combinations, right? When learning what the combinations of that is. And so that's where you get bricks and cement from.
Yeah.
There was a man by the name of Scott Bond, one of my favorite stories. He, started as a slave, worked his way up, and created a brick laying company. He created a big farm. I'm talking about hundreds of fruit trees. I'm talking about wealthy, right? Even for like just American standards, not even just black standards. He was wealthier than most white people. And so he created bricks. And that's alchemy. You're mixing the earth with water, with fire. That's alchemy. Right. And that brick then goes on to create buildings. That building goes on to facilitate education, facilitate home, facilitate any other, commercial or anything like that. Like, you have to have all of these elements in place. And so the ancestors were alchemists, period. They were able to create something out of nothing based upon their sheer will, ingenuity, brilliance, innate brilliance. And that's the reason why you can never tell me anything negative about the ancestors. And there'll never be a time. You can send me the most gruesome slave story, blood, everything. You could never tell me those stories and I walk away with it with an inferiority complex because I know what the ancestors were about.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And one thing that you made me think of as far as the idea of reading education and how white folks knew the danger in allowing us to read, write, and educate ourselves. And then whenever we began to learn how to read, and obviously that the one enslaved person on the plant, let's say if it was one or two that could read on the plantation and it was maybe 5 or 6 to 20 or whatever, they would often read something or for the rest of their
but it's like it's like that scene in Life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He can't read and he reads the letter from home and all of that. They did that all of the time. And that's another thing. It only took one. No, go ahead.
No. And so what it made me think about was how a lot of the first thing that they read was the Bible, and then be inspired by Exodus, especially to say, hey, like, these people's story kind of look like mine. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they begin to even, just going back, to the songs that we sang in the field, you know what I mean? And just seeing how they use Exodus for inspiration. Like whenever you listen to a lot of those old spirituals, it seems like, because to be honest with you, it seems like they might have been more on the Old Testament than they were on the New Testament at times. You know what I'm saying? Because of that direct story of slavery and freedom that the Old Testament had, and I just thought that was very interesting. And to the point where, as you know, like they created what they call the slave Bible, where they took out
Yeah,
a
they took
lot
out.
of,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
took out a lot of that
I
stuff.
actually have a copy of that.
Oh,
It's
do you
digital.
really?
Yeah, I have a copy of it. And that's another thing. I want you guys to notice, man. The Ancestors first editions, thousands of dollars worth. I'm talking it like these books, because not only because they're old, but because of what's inside of it. There's so many like holy grails that I have as a historian. You know what I'm saying? Like the Journal of Negro History. I want all of the volumes of that. The Journal of Negro History.
Yeah, I got digital copies and stuff, but that would be amazing to have some
I got the
physicals,
digital
man.
copies. I got all the volumes. I mean, I got the volumes all the way up to like 2012. Like, and so I have them, but I need that on my shelf, gang.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to that story in particular, it really is a microcosm of what we're doing here. You read these stories of the ancestors, and the reason why they resonate so much with you because you can see yourself in it.
Yes.
These are your people.
Yes.
And that's the reason why when it came down to foreign influences and stuff like that, I just tweeted that, like, don't I said, too much foreign influence can have you forgetting where you actually came from. And so for me, fam, reading that book, right, and seeing yourself in those people gives you the idea that that's me. I can do this. We can. And so when it comes down to that, what happens right after? Right, you have the great exodusters. You have all these people leaving the South and going to Kansas and stuff like that, and doing all of these things in the late 19th century and left. This is before the Great Migration. The Great Migration happened in 1910. We talking the 1860s, 1870s, right? And so being influenced or being inspired by the story of Exodus, right? The people leaving Egypt and going into traveling with Moses and all of that, like that inspired them that if they can do it, if the God that I serve and the God that I believe in sent Moses to do this and liberate his people, clearly this is a story this is for me.
To the point where even we called our own liberators Moses and different names.
Right.
I just think that's powerful, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, absolutely though. And this is the reason why it's so important for the babies in particular. Now, of course, if you my age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, and you digging it, you just like, let's just say you just like my storytelling, right? I could spin a yarn, right? And so you just dig it on the content level. Cool. But I'm trying to get to your son. I'm trying to get to your niece. I'm trying to get to your nephew. I want them to know, because by and large, when their history teacher tells them about their ancestors, it's going to be, listen, this is the story. This is how K through 12 does it. Slavery, Jim Crow, civil rights, which is Martin Luther King, and then Barack Obama. That's how they're gonna give you. That's all they're gonna give you. Pretty much the late 19th century don't even exist if you're not talking about people being duped into staying slaves and all this other stuff, right? You're only
it dehumanizes us in a way, because again, it acts as if these people don't have stories. These people didn't have love lives. They weren't mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. They didn't have ideas. And this is what you do extremely well, is to humanize our ancestors and be able to tell their stories in a way where it's like, even if I was enslaved, I am still a human being, regardless to what they say. They can call me chattel, they can treat me as chattel, but I am a human being, and I have the same needs, wants, desires that all humans have, right? And I appreciate you telling those stories like that, man. I really do.
Absolutely. And I promise you, that was an eye opener for me. Like I at that moment, you realize you have been sold a bill of goods. You realize, like, it's almost like I know this is going to be a deep cut for non-historians, but it's going to be like when black people voted for Woodrow Wilson in 1912 and 1913. Everybody thought that because our intellectual class was going over to Europe and hearing about socialism and communism and all this other stuff, and so when you have a president who's kind of talking similar, speaking similar to those points, and you go vote for him, right? Because the ancestors were staunch Republicans until 1936, and so taking a chance on this Democrat, they vote for him. He immediately resegregates the federal government. He's doing showings of Birth of a Nation, which is a KKK recruitment film, right?
Right.
And it's like totally just flip-flop, did a complete 180 on Black America. And the ancestors go to the White House like, yo, what's up?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on, gang? Like, you said you was going to do this, you was going to do that. And then it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type situation. And Woodrow Wilson was like, yo, if the Negro has an issue, well, with his voting for me, he should do something about it. That's how he talked to them. And so it's like, yo, fam. Like, so you realize you've been sold a bill of goods. And so for me, I'm like, yo, fam, I can't tell you at this point. I have lost count of how many people told me, like, yo, son, if they was talking this history stuff like you talk when I was in school, I would have been a straight A student.
Yeah. Because
one of the things that education, if we're going back to education real quick, the way that the ancestors educated the babies outside of just simple, reading and arithmetic was to attach a particular great notable person that's currently living or one of their ancestors to the curriculum. And so, or practical arithmetic, right? And so let's just say we're getting into science. We want to teach the baby science. I am going to tell you the story of a Black scientist first. I'm going to show you that before you even engage with the subject matter, a Black man and or a Black woman is already proficient in this field.
Yes.
So off the rip, that gives you that representation, that confidence, that inspiration that if this man could do it or this woman can do it, I can do it too.
And not only that, here's how he helped his people in that
right.
place. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's also important too, because they had an understanding that, okay, I am still a part of this community. We are all we got. And so, you know what I mean? I hate to say it, but like as time goes on, feels like sometimes we lose that sense of community. You know,
I got a whole rant for that. Listen, we are completely listen. I want to so I have this thing called a portal theory that after in 1965, Black America went through a portal. That's my theory, and trust me, tap into my channel, you will see the portal theory is undefeated. I promise. You. Now, prior to 1965, your success wasn't your own. That didn't make any sense. I didn't become a respected doctor, respected lawyer, farmer, grocery store owner, or whatever it is to just, enjoy the spoils of myself, especially because I'm from a generation of slaves, of former slaves. And so it's the deepest levels of each one, teach what was taught, all of these different things, because by and large, 9.5 times out of 10, the only reason I'm wealthy and successful is because of you.
Yeah.
Because y'all shop with me, because y'all crowdfunded my education, or I worked hard, and Black teachers and Black employers and Black this and Black that got me to this point. And so when it's time for me to open up shop, when it's time for me to, look out for my customer base or to provide care if I'm a doctor, I'm not leaving the community.
Right.
I'm not doing that. George E. Johnson Sr. This is actually a little bit more contemporary. George E. Johnson Sr., the owner of Johnson Public Company, the first Black owned public company on the stock market. Amazing book. It's called Afro Sheen. You guys should definitely read it. It's an amazing book, action-packed book, a bunch of action scenes. His life was incredible. Johnson Products Company was an anomaly as far as big businesses was concerned. He was offering health insurance when that wasn't the industry standard. He was offering college tuition reimbursement. Wow. He offered free breakfast and lunch. He offered, because it was a hair company or hair products company, he offered free haircuts and hairstyles for free. Wow. He had a profit sharing program. So the more money you make the company and the more money the company makes, the more money you make. It was quite literally our own private stock market, right? If I have percentage or ownership or equity in this business, and the more successful the business become, the more successful I become, I'm going to tell everybody that I know to shop with this company. I'm only going to shop with this company. I'm going to make sure that I shop from the rooftops that you need to shop with this company. He had a bad fire. Burnt down the building. One of his employees died, unfortunately. He goes to the grieving family and tells them, That man has a salary for life.
Wow.
You will never have to worry about missing a paycheck. And every quarter, my employees get a raise. He gets a raise every quarter. That's the least I can do.
Wow.
It's the least I can do for you. Not only that, Samuel B. Fuller, his OG, Samuel B. Fuller is his precursor in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He actually named his company similar to his. So Samuel B. Fuller is the Fuller Products Company.
Okay.
George E. Johnson was the Johnson Products Company.
Mm.
Samuel B. Fuller, very pious man, Christian man, conservative man. He was one of those staunch conservatives too, like anti-welfare, anti-handout. Listen, get it out the muscle, bootstrap, right? I think he was making like $200 million a year. And then his protege went on to make $200 million a year, become the first publicly traded black company in the country, right? So that's the lineage we talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Samuel B. Fuller has his factory. He's like, yo, listen, I heard that you had some bad things. He gave him a bunch of Bible verses like, yo, God wouldn't put you through something, if you couldn't handle it, boom, boom, boom. Encouraged them, gave him some Bible verses and said, yo, listen, you can use my facilities for as long as you need. You can use my factory for as long as you need. Cool. That's dope. That's not even the dopest part. George calls a meeting for all his employees. He has dozens, if not hundreds of employees, calls them all, says, yo, listen, as you know, the building burned down last night, but I do have a plan. Rakeem, in 10 days, he was made whole. 10 days. His employees worked around the clock to salvage the company, to salvage it. So, we're going to go to the, Mr. Fuller's factory, right? We're going to work on his conveyor belts or his assembly lines, get our products out there. And in 10 days, they were back like they never left.
Dang.
Because of how much he cared for his community. Because if it was just the greedy capitalist fat cat, he would have took the insurance money, moved to the burbs, and never done anything. But because he put back and reinvested in the community, he rose countless black Americans in Chicago out of poverty. Like they were no longer poor because they worked for Mr. Johnson. So of course I'm going to stay up to 3 o'clock in the morning to help, salvage whatever that wasn't destroyed in the fire. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course you've allowed me to be a man in my home. I could put food on the table because I work for you. There would be no me as a father and a husband in the capacity that I am in without this black-owned business. So, of course, if you need me to work around the clock to get us back on track for the next however long, we don't know. And because everybody had that diligence and that dedication, it only took 10 days, 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 weeks. He bought a new factory, bigger than the last one, right? Better than the last one. And we back like gangbusters, like nothing happened. And a fire destroyed the previous factory. And this is why I talk about the importance of group economics. Everybody sees, the Asians are doing this, the Jewish people are doing that. I'm like, that's the Black American blueprint.
Right.
The ancestors started this blueprint. The ancestors were like, yo, listen, the goods and services that we provide to, the rest of America, right? When it comes down to the Asians, it's the Chinese food stores, the nail salons, and the beauty supply stores, right?
Yeah.
White people were picketing Chinese food stores in the 40s and 50s. Picketing them, like literally, no, we're not going to eat here. They refined the menu, added more salt, more sugar, more things that's Americanized. And now Chinese food restaurants outnumber McDonald's in its own home country.
Damn.
There are more Chinese food restaurants in this country than McDonald's, fam.
Damn, I didn't know that.
That's what group economics gets you. That's how you corner the market. Asians, I was just having this debate the other day. Asians are half the size of Black America, and they have the same comparable spending power. Asians have about 1.6 trillion. Black Americans got about 2 trillion. Half the size of Black America, but because of group economics circulating the dollar, they literally make more money than white people today. And that's what I be trying to tell people. It's like, yo, dog, the potential that Black America has at any given time of the year, any given time of the day, we're the richest Black population in the world. If Black America was its own country, we would be like number 10 in the world, son. In the world. That's counting all of Europe, all of Asia, all of Africa, all of the world. We would be number 10. Top nation, top 10. That's how deep Black American spending power is. $2 trillion every 365 days. If we were to take, let's just take 50% of it off the table, because necessities, living expenses, rent, mortgage, groceries, right? Because we can get even deeper into it, where if we had the farms, like we do have the farms, but if we shopped with the farmers the way we do, we would be able to provide all of the necessities too. Real estate, right? Our landlords would be black and da 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 da. But let's just say all of the living expenses, all of the necessities are non-black owned. So that's 50% of the income. We still have $1 trillion to circulate amongst ourselves when it comes down to discretionary and disposable income. That will allow us to put all of our babies through college, right? So we have, the highest levels of, college graduates, and they're going to be pursuing things like STEM, finance, law, medicine, things that, excuse me, actually pay.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to be going into. And so once they graduate, they need to work somewhere. So we need black law firms. We need black medical practices. We need black this and black that. Not only that, we need people to build these things. So now we have black construction companies and all of this. And so you see the necessity of circulating our dollars. I promise you, with that $1 trillion a year, we'll be number one in 25 years tops.
Indeed.
The longest time that it would take us is 25 years. We'll be number one in the country over white people, over Asians, and over everybody else. If black Americans lock in for one generation, for 25 years, there will be no stopping us. Just one, I'm telling you. And the reason I mapped it out like that is because the ancestors did. 25 years after 1865, look, they were comparable. They were lapping white people. And if it wasn't for government opposition, if it wasn't for government intervention and all this other stuff, we would have been number one in the country. It's not hard to beat white people. It's not. They're human just like everybody else.
Right.
But because they got, we fighting them with one arm tied around our back, and they got an extra arm, you know what I'm saying? And we still, like, imagine you have one arm fighting somebody with 3 arms and you still giving them the beats.
Yeah.
You still giving them smoke. So imagine. And so black America needs to lock in for the next generation, right? Claude Anderson said in 94, we got until 2013. Now, and I ain't gonna lie, Claude Anderson kind of wiped his hands with the situation. He an old man. Listen, I still believe what I believe in black America, but as an old man, I'm not about to stress over it. I done cried, I done yelled, I done did speeches, I done wrote books, I opened up businesses to show you how to do it. And if y'all not gonna get with it, y'all not gonna get with it. I'm an old man. But that math will never cease to change. It will never change. If black America locks in for 25 years, which is not a long time in the span of history, right? I'm 36. The past 25 years went like that.
Right.
You feel me? I still remember
so
when I was
fast.
So, you know what I'm saying?
For real.
When it comes down to that, trust and believe, we do have the ingenuity, we do have the ability, and if we lock in for real, fam, it wouldn't take us a long time. And by the 25th year, we all throughout those 25 years, we would see the progress. It's not like everything would the lights would finally turn on after 25 years. Nah, by year 5, you would see 20% of the progress. By year 15, you would see you would see the progress happening. And so that's what I encourage black Americans to do. And I promise you, this is my true, a true statement for me. It's what I truly believe, that if everybody was operating the way that me and you operate when it comes down to the ancestors, because you don't have that inferiority complex either.
Absolutely
not. It's not a portion of you, because of your black skin, you feel like you're inferior to anybody else.
No.
If the whole of black America looked at themselves and looked at our history the way we do it, and studied and understand that a former slave was able to become a millionaire and become one of the richest men, period, regardless of race, there'll be nothing stopping you in the inner city, in the ghetto, in the burbs, in the country, wherever you at, from being like, oh, I could do that. If a black man who couldn't read or write until the age of 21 can become a doctor by the age of 30, surely somebody like you, who's a high school graduate, may not make a lot of money right now, but you have ambition, you have determination, and all of that, and you had at least a few dozen stories that you can recall and be like, yo, he did it this way. She was able to make it. They were able to make it. They came together, and the babies knew that as intuitively as they know about Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or anybody else. If they just knew that, fam, there'll be nothing stopping them because there'll be nobody or no type of narrative. Because that was the thing I saw when I was a kid. Oh man, that's white people stuff. That's what white people do. The white people do that. The white people do that. It's like, fam, if I would have known now if I would have known then what I know now, fam, Jesus.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to get to. And that's why doing platforms like yours, it trains me to not to curse, because I want to make sure that my message gets to the babies. While I appreciate the adults being able to powwow about it, you see that we already like-minded.
Yeah.
Me and you already connect with the ancestors. I got to get to the 8-year-old. I got to get to the 13-year-old.
Right.
That's who I'm gunning for, because they're going to be here when we're gone.
Absolutely.
You feel me? And so that's another part of the ancestors thing. When you read any preface from the ancestors, from the 18th to the early 20th century, the preface of almost all of the books will say, I wrote this book for the future generations of Black America. I wrote this book for little Black boys and girls. I wrote this book to inspire, educate, and motivate Black children to know you are capable of doing literally anything and everything that you want to get done out here. There's nothing stopping you. If me, a former slave who could not learn to read until I was 21 years old, can turn around and become a doctor and be a published author before I die, surely you, who was born, because you got to remember, Jim Crow era is progress to the ancestors that were formerly enslaved. Like, yo, y'all got fountains? Yo, y'all got this, y'all got that. And so that's the reason why when it comes down to race relations and stuff like that, you see the stoicism in the ancestors. It's like, yo, social racism wasn't that big of a deal to the ancestors. Was it annoying? Like I told you, like the guys that tarred and feathered Lunsford Lane. But that they were more, if they're going to deal with that, they're going to be dealing with stuff on a legislative level. They're going to be like, they just stay away from the socially racist, or they're going to defend themselves from the socially racist. The guys that drive through the town and shoot in the air and burn crosses on the front yard, the ancestors is going to get their guns and shoot back.
That's all I was going to say. When you were mentioning that story, there are a lot of people have stories that, we were from Mississippi, but my great grandfather killed one of them, and that's how we ended up in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I
had to get up out of there.
Those are real stories, man.
Those are real stories. And so that's what I'm saying. It's like, you have been told that your ancestors were brutalized. And that's the thing. That's how insidious it is, because they're not lying, but they're lying by omission. Yes. When it comes down to
those slave masters were in constant fear as well,
always,
because of how we were bringing the pain. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They don't tell that part of the story.
They refuse to, because it wouldn't jive with their actual agenda. Right. See, the thing is, they want to be able. It's called humble bragging, and so this is what a lot of white liberals do. And they've been doing this for generations. They'll come to random Black men like me or you and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for what my ancestors did. I hate the fact that your ancestors went through that. I mean, when it comes down to the privilege that I have, I grew up in a beautiful big home, and I had a Benz my freshman year of high school, and my father is so rich and my mother is this. You don't feel bad. You're just bragging. And so that's what the teachers would do. They want to show, I'm not a racist because I'm against the racism. Oh my God, you poor wretched Black child. You come from, adversity, and your conditioning to, be less than a person and all of that. Listen, I feel for you, and it's okay. And here, my benevolence is the reason why you're free. The white abolitionists. And it's like, I'm reading here that my ancestors killed his slave owner, killed his overseer, joined the Union Army, and then joined a bunch of other Black men killed and died for their freedom. I didn't hear about no white benevolence. No, I tell people all the time, be very clear. The ancestors freed themselves.
Bruh, I was going to mention that because I saw a white nationalist on Twitter talking about, he was getting into it with another brother, and he was talking about, you should thank us because we freed you. And it's like, nah, we freed ourselves. The Civil War was a slave rebellion. Let's
There's a slave rebellion in Union for yo. How do you this was one of the illest parts about recruitment for me. So you got the people who signed up, free black Americans who because there have been free black Americans since like the 17th century in this country. So you got free black Americans signing up for the Union. So and Harriet Tubman has a dope story about this. So she's guiding them down the river in like South Carolina or somewhere. And so they would do raids. They hop off the boat, raid the plantation, kill the slave owner, kill all of the opposition, and all of the black slaves who were there will become Union soldiers.
Right.
And so now you enslaved, I'm previously enslaved, I freed myself or whatever it is. I go to your plantation, right? Hand you a rifle, hand you a Union hat, hand you a coat, and tell you to let's get to work. So the only difference is that you just put a uniform on. But this is a slave rebellion throughout the entire South.
Absolutely.
Most of the black regiment in the Civil War were formerly enslaved just a few weeks ago. They were just enslaved.
Yeah.
And so this is just an insurrection. And when you get down, and that's another thing, that's another part of my job is to read the other side. Again, I want people to understand the difference between understanding something and accepting something, because you can accept something and not understand it. And you can definitely understand something without accepting it. So I have a bunch in my library. I have a bunch of pro-slavery books. I have a bunch of books written by slave owners being like, yo, this is the reason why we need to keep the Negro enslaved. And so I can get into the mind of the slave owner to see what they actually were about. And what I'm telling you is, once the war was over, these dudes were destitute, didn't know, like they literally did not know how to take care of themselves. Lawrence Fishburne, funny enough, he did a reading of a letter correspondence between a former slave and a former slave owner. And this former slave owner was begging this man to come back. Please come back. I will pay you whatever you want. Please just come back, because I don't know what I'm doing. My crops are dying. My soil is white. Like, you know what I'm saying? I have no idea.
Right.
And so the formerly enslaved ancestor, he writes back and be like, yo, listen, first and foremost, the answer is no. I'm living a great life. I'm making like $25 a week, which is a lot of money for that time. My wife is good. My children are good. My daughters are good. I'm telling them that don't be ashamed that you are a former slave. That doesn't define you. But if you are interested, here's how much money that I'm calculating. Due to the 25 years of free labor that I gave, I need back pay for those 25 years, and I need to know how much you're going to be paying me per week or per day or per month or whatever it is. And so if you are able to he calculated like, yo, yeah, you owe me about $5,000, which adjusted for inflation is like $500,000. So if you're willing to pay me the $5,000 and all of the back pay or whatever, and a salary that's worthy, that can beat my $25 a week salary, then I'll think about it. That's the real.
And that caused a lot of, and that added on to the white resentment that they had towards us.
You finally, so I'm sorry, this is my final point. You finally realized that it was you who needed me.
Yeah.
I never needed you. And that was the whole psyop, is that you tried to condition me. You tried to condition me into thinking that I needed you, but you couldn't even live without me. And once the ancestors realized that, that's when, the inferiority complex is literally finding, it's like the horse finding out that he's stronger than the chair.
Yeah.
But go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, man, brother, I appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate this interview. Again, I love these deep dives and these stories about our ancestors. And again, it's extremely important. It's almost spiritual in a sense, because you can picture them, you can see them, you can feel their presence. You know what I'm saying? And we keep them with us. You know what I mean? It's 2026. They may have lived in 1790 or 1830, but we bring them here to the present with us. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate you doing that and getting others interested who might not be or maybe not have been interested before, but after hearing your stories are now interested in learning our history. And before we go, because I'll say this, I was talking to someone the other day, and it was about which I'm not going to get into now because I don't really want to give him too much light, but it was about the slave trade deniers in our community who are the
Oh my good.
a part of the We Are Indigenous crowd, and
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
and so but in order to prove their claim, which is false, but in order to prove their claim, I've seen people say things like, yes, slavery didn't really happen, or didn't really happen on the scale that we think it happened. And to me, I find that as a black man, right? One of the most egregious things that you can do is downplay the horrors that your ancestors went through and endured. And not only that, I think it's important for all black men and women to study the slave trade, study the stories, study the history of that, because that is, I'm not saying limit your study to that, right?
Right.
But we have to know their stories. We have to keep their names alive. We have to keep their stories alive. It's imperative. There's no other, I don't play the oppression Olympics or anything, but
Mhm.
there are groups that have gone through genocides who keep, who know the importance of teaching the youth about the genocide that they went through. And so I feel like we have to take the same approach with our youth as far as teaching them the history of our enslavement, the stories, how we were able to overcome. Not only that, the ass kickings that we gave them during slavery, how the Civil War was also a slavery. But we have all these different narratives, all these things that we talked about. I feel like it's important for the youth to know. And so again, I want to let everybody know to subscribe to Hotep History on YouTube. Also, subscribe to the Patreon as well. And again, man, thank you for taking us down through this deep dive on just the different ancestors that we covered today. It's really been dope. I know I think the people will really really appreciate this, and so thank you again, my brother.
Nah, man. Thank you, man. Anytime, not only do I get to nerd out, but I get to nerd out with somebody that I can be like, yo, you know about Harper's
Yeah,
Ferry, right? And you get it.
right,
And so
right.
I always love coming on your platform, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm needing like a quarterly check-in or something. We need to do
Oh,
this like 4 times a year, gang.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
feel
You
me?
already,
Because
look, we
I
already
feel so
locked
at
in.
home on the platform. You feel me?
Yeah, you are at home, brother. You are at home, and I definitely want to have you on as one of the regulars. And so that's already a done deal. That was already a done deal
For
anyway. But
sure.
so I appreciate you, man, and you have a great night, brother.
You too, bro. And as always, I like to do my little sign off just
Hmm.
because you got this is Hotep history over here.
Absolutely.
Can't have the future without the present. You can't have the present without the past. And we don't study history to live in the past, but to order our steps in the present so we can positively affect our future. And thank you,
Mm.
Rakeem. Anytime that you need me, gang, it's always going to be the answer yes. As long as I'm not on vacation or something like that, I'm here, gang. You have been phenomenal. There's so many people that have from your channel that told me that they appreciate my work and stuff like that. So you brought a lot of people over. So I just want to say
Wow.
thank you for that, man.
Mm.
And this is just another instance of group economics, and we're gonna keep rocking, man. And whatever I can do to push your channel and and all of that, please let me know, gang. That's it.
Absolutely, man. Much appreciated, brother.
For sure, man. Good night.
Peace.